It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy and Christina are here. Jason Snell is still in Cupertino. Micah Sargent joins us as we talk about everything Apple announced at WWDC. Some say the keynote was meh. Others are very excited. What do you think? We'll find out what our panelists think next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 1028, recorded Tuesday, June 9th, 2026, the Finder guy of your choosing. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple, and there is some news. Christina Warren is here. She's back from Build. Did you have a good time?
I did. I had a great time. There was actually a lot of cool stuff at Build.
There
really was, that we can, I think, talk about, and maybe in context to how now we've seen all the major, tech developer things we can kind of compare. But yeah, Build was a lot of fun.
They 7 new models Microsoft announced, AI models.
Yeah.
Which is quite a few. They also announced their new agentic AI. AI was definitely on the table at Build, and I hope you get one of these. You have a DGX Spark, don't you? Oh no, have the framework.
No, I have the framework. Yeah, no, I want that RTX Spark.
The RTX, the Surface.
Yeah, they're not going to give me one, but I would definitely wish that.
You're a valued employee.
I mean, look, I'm sure that the list of people who want that is very long, and I'm sure that I'm not on it. But
sure the price is right too.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't even want to think about how much the 128 gig version of that will cost, but I want one. And so if anybody is listening to the MacBreak Weekly podcast from Microsoft, please let it be known.
They listen to see what the competition's up to. That's Andy Ihnatko, who is now competing with every website in the world with his new ihnatko.com.
Well, see, this is where I've got my marketing strategy. If I'm making up all the facts as I go along, I'm going to be the only source of that information. You see,
Scoops.
Whereas I'm saying if I'm like I said, if I just report on what's going on at WWDC, okay, factual stuff, okay, everybody knows what the name of Siri AI is. Everybody knows the relationship with Gemini models. But if I were to say that basically they're moving the entire operation to Canada and they're going to be making chocolate chip cookies, okay,
that would be a scoop.
I'm the only person who has that information, and I feel as though with some little SEO wizardry, I think that we can turn this into at least an $800 a year industry.
All you have to do is add people with knowledge of the situation. Say. That's all you have to add.
And a shaky grip on reality. Just to add.
Jason is still in Cupertino. He decided to stay over. So Mr. Snell is not here tonight, but Mr. Micah Sargent is. Hey, Micah.
Hello, Leo. Hello, everyone.
Micah joined me yesterday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, for an hour and 20 minutes of excitement with the WWDC keynote, and that is our topic of the show today. Now, I think most people who watch the show would probably know what happened yesterday.
One would think.
I'm gonna go through it, bit by bit, but what do you think, Micah? Just now that we have some time to reflect, we're out of the reality distortion field. What do you think the big announcement of yesterday was? Was it the slider for opacity in liquid glass? Was that it?
I think that this is the thing, Leo. So much of what ends up getting dispersed into the ecosystem is based on the sort of memeability of the moment. And by that, I just mean the little distilled moments. Yeah. And a lot of this wasn't able to be distilled down into a small thing. But what you're talking about, that reference there about a slider that changes how translucent liquid glass is, that is something that people can clip and share and go, finally, they're listening to us. So yeah, I think in some ways, if we're looking at the rate at which I saw references and excitement about this change.
A lot of YouTube shorts on that.
Yeah, exactly. then yeah, that's the big news. But I think for Apple, they probably felt that their big news was what came later in the show, which is why they got the stuff out of the way at first with security and safety and design updates.
Andy, I'm sure you were watching with interest. Was there anything that you thought was particularly YouTubeable?
There were mostly broad things. I will say that I will highlight, since we're talking about liquid glass, again, Apple does not need to retract. They don't need to apologize. However, there was a something that was so masterfully worded that I actually like wrote it down word for word. This is as close as Apple will ever get to saying, yeah, that was a pretty big mistake, and we're sorry. when they're talking in the design section where they're talking about liquid glass, here's what we do: we take a bold leap forward, then continue to innovate. Part of it is listening to users and developers, and our team really appreciates your feedback.
Yeah,
I'm like, I thought they made some nice steps, and some of them like explicitly like addressing every single blog post that came along. Which says, yeah, we're going to make sure like the
fixing rounded corners like stood out to me. It's like, wow.
Yeah,
how did that happen in the first place? Because they were all different.
Yeah. The toolbar across the tops of apps is now going to be more uniform. We're going to try to make sure that when we put something on top of other interface, we don't make it impossible for you to read what's supposed to be behind it. Like all these things, they didn't say, well, we screwed up that, but we fixed it. But they really wanted to make sure that they were as contrite as they could possibly be without inviting a class action suit by saying, yeah, we shipped something that we're really not proud of. And we have to put out this basically apology tour of releases.
They actually sent us to the design studio. They said Stacy's in the design studio to make all those apologies, but they didn't apologize. They just said we're going to make this.
And again, they didn't have to. There was overreaction, but again, I like the fact that they acknowledged that no, this wasn't a gosh. I was braced for the phrase we often hear, which is our customers love the new butterfly keyboard with half a millimeter of travel, and we're happy to say we've now made it even better. No, they just basically said, yeah, we're listening to your feedback. We're going to iterate and innovate, and by the way, here's some specific things that you don't have to ask us about anymore because we fixed it. So,
Christina,
well done.
What did you see as? I mean, this ridiculous for me to say pick one thing, but just it's fun to start with dessert. So we're going to start with dessert.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think. Honestly, talking about a little bit about kind of like the retraction of sorts of liquid glass was actually really interesting to see. I mean, I think the big headline thing obviously was all of the Siri AI stuff. Like that was going to be the big thing. But I was actually very happy to see them do a retraction of sorts, even though they didn't do a full apology for liquid glass. Someone in the chat mentioned that. Poor Syracuse is stuck on like the Tahoe UI for forever on his Mac Pro. And I will say like that, they mentioned it in the State of the Union, but it didn't get any other mentions from what I could tell. But kind of the fact that like the Intel Macs are now officially dead, like that makes me sad a little bit. I do feel, I'm going to be honest, I feel like especially the fact that they're supporting the latest version of iOS going all the way back to the iPhone 11. I'm like, you know what, you could have given us another year. For the Intel Macs. Like
I was shocked. I launched Steam the other day and it said, this isn't going to keep running next time. You better get an updated version. Yeah. I mean, you'd think they would have updated Steam by now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Steam has been kind of in a weird spot where there's not a whole lot of reason for Steam to want to work with Apple. And Apple as not really done a lot to make it clear they want to work for Steam. Like it seems like Apple still lives in this universe where they think that everybody who has a Mac buys games from the Mac App Store, which is, just not reality. I mean, it will be interesting to see like kind of like, because I still have an Intel iMac that is still very serviceable and I don't know if I'm going to put Linux on it or if I am going to upgrade it to Tahoe or what.
It's natural for Linux is what it is.
Yes, but here's the problem. Those T2 chips are difficult for Linux to deal with a little bit. So there are some problems there, but I'm sure people will come up with solutions. But I will say this was not part of the keynote, but I was jealous of this because I saw all over social media. People who were there in person got the little Finder Guy pins.
Yeah.
Dang
it. Not the new Finder Guy. I want that.
For the first time in 12 years, I'm unhappy that I didn't get to go to an Apple event.
Don't worry, it's probably $130 on eBay.
On eBay,
yeah, I'm sure that it is, and I will not be buying that. If someone wants to send me one, I will pay no, not 130. I pay like 20, but like that.
I'll do 21.
No bidding.
Okay, no bidding against
each other.
25.
Kids, I'll do 50.
Okay,
Apple
I'm not doing
Finder
50.
Guide.
67.
I'll wait for the pin to arrive on Thingiverse and then do it there.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That was a really good point that you made, Christine. This is going to be an interesting year. Like, on the one hand, Apple very, very correctly boasted about how this operating system will work all the way back to basically they're not, if your current phone uses can run iOS 26, it will be able to run iOS 27. You're not being orphaned that way. And yet, of course, Intel users are being left behind. Again, arguably, they've had these machines for a long time. It's not as though they're going to stop working. However, there's a phrase that popped up in the keynote 2 or 3 times that Google was also using during the I/O keynote. That horrible phrase, on our most technologically advanced hardware. That's like, oh God, that means that is the phone that I bought last year is not going to. It's like most of Apple Intelligence will work, but when you talk about Siri AI, the stuff we're going to be talking about next, the stuff that they spent the entire keynote talking about. Sorry if you've got an M1 or an M2. I think the Macs are like M3 or better. I think the iPads are M4 or better, right? And a minimum of 12 gigabytes of RAM, like on all these devices. So there are a lot of people that are they're not necessarily going to be left behind. It's not as though iOS 27 won't run. It's not as though 28, 29, 30 won't run. But again, Apple spent like the most compact hiccup saying, oh, by the way, we've done a million different tiny little improvements and increases of features. Basically, it's so much new stuff. And there's like a screenshot where they have to zoom out to fit all the text in there. And I haven't even gotten down to I screenshot it so I can give it to Gemini or something. Say, please turn this into a list that I can actually read. But that's the stuff that we're all going to have available to us. But that's not the stuff that Apple wanted to show off. Apple wanted to show off the future of Apple is all this stuff that, unless you have a machine that's pretty new, we're looking forward to you enjoying these like in 2 years' time when you finally spill a Pepsi onto the keyboard of your M2 MacBook. Yeah.
Here's the screen they put up. This is I think from 9 to 5 Mac. Good luck reading all of that.
That's like the end of the contract that Willy Wonka made the kids sign before they gave the tour. That's
I do see something that says updated liquid glass in there, and David Schaub's also pointing out, and I think this is a big one too, that Apple finally retracted, or this was on the platform State of the Union, I think, the menu icons, or at least gave you a little bit more flexibility on how your menu icons appear. So that was another complaint a lot of people had. But that's the Blogiverse. That's not really what we care about at this point, right? Or no?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, look, I am happy about the changes that the details do matter, right? And like the fact that they listened to the corner radius, which I don't actually think is a minor thing. The fact that they said that it's smaller now actually makes me happy. I'm like, oh, I might actually be able to use my Mac and not have it in more space mode. Yay. And the fact that like they brought color back to the sidebars, like no, the details matter. And I, even if it wasn't a full retrenchment, the fact that they acknowledged that there were usability issues the first go around, which yes, there were. It's glad to see, and hopefully that will pay off better as we go into the crux of what they discussed.
Do you think there was an unusual amount of attention? I think there was, because of Apple's failure 2 WWDCs ago. By the way, here's the little Finder Guy pin. I could not find this on eBay, but Jammer B had a picture of it.
We have to start a betting pool on if they name them, and if they name them, what they're going to name. I hope they let him be like, don't name him at all. Let us all like understand little Finder.
He's little Finder Guy
in our relationship, just like our relationship with God. We create the little Finder Guy that we need in our lives at any one given moment.
Yes, the Finder Guide of your choice.
I'm sorry,
choosing. I think that Apple
open the door to little Finder Guy, and the little Finder Guy will finally come.
Mike and I observed this actually as we're watching, as they're starting to roll out more and more about the AI. Is they better be darn careful not to show anything they cannot produce.
This is another thing that, again, it wasn't specifically. There was so much subtext here about we are not going to screw up the way that
We did before.
Exactly. Every single demo was, I have a device in my hand, I'm running it, and you can see it running on the thing. So again, we're still months away from
noticeably latent too. I mean, it wasn't instant. They didn't edit out the pauses.
This is not a mock-up. This is actually running. And also the other question, which I didn't actually consider until this morning when I was reviewing things, like, I'm not saying that Apple did not make any promise as to when Siri AI features will ship versus iOS 27, but I assumed that it would be the beta would start at least around the same time. Now I'm trying to figure. That's one of those details I'm trying to figure out right now. Did they actually say that when iOS 27 actually ships this fall, some iteration of Siri AI in beta will also ship? Or did they simply basically announce this as something that is a work in progress that will ship on its own time?
I think they were unclear on that.
I was reading a couple of analysts that were investment analysts who basically said that this is one of the disappointments of why they're downgrading Apple a little bit, because it's great that they showed this stuff off, but they're disappointed that they did not show off a firm timetable on when these features are actually going to go.
They said it'll be available this fall in beta.
Okay.
And that implies, in beta, it implies not everything, not all. And I think this is the most important thing. My takeaway from yesterday, the most important thing is all look good, but we really can't judge it until we start seeing it. And for instance, even though there was latency in those demos that they were doing and they were holding up a phone, remember, those are pre-recorded. And I believe
not necessarily the first shot, right?
Yeah, right. And I also believe that some of those were canned demos. And the reason I said that is there was a session later where 4 of them are on stage, and Mike Rockwell repeats the same exact query he did in the video, in the keynote video. And the tell was he knew ahead of time what the answer was going to be, because he said, "Oh, I don't have a Mike's Cooking website." There was a little tell in there, and so again, this is just me being suspicious. Now, has anybody been bold enough? Jason Snell said, "Do not install the developer preview."
No.
Mike, you said you were going to.
Yeah, and I have.
Did you?
The problem is that you have to join a wait list for new Siri, and so
you can't
I don't have access to that yet. I have access to some of the features. I was I do it every year regardless. I always just do a full iMazing backup beforehand so that it's fine. But I was particularly okay with doing it this year because of Apple's focus on reliability. I've run into a number of issues, and I think that people should be careful. Even if it's just frustrations, those start to add up. But I was hoping to get to try literally anything from the Siri part, and frankly, that's just not yet possible. Yeah. We do currently have access to some of the photos changes and a few other things that we can talk about as we get to it. But yeah, as far as new Siri, not yet.
And Christina says, "Well, let's applaud your hat."
Yes, I just noticed your hat. I just noticed your hat, and it's fantastic. That is
it's a GitHub hat.
That is a GitHub hat. So yes,
this is one of my favorite hats because it's just, I don't know, it's perfect color. Anyway, I really like this hat. So it happens to have the GitHub logo on it. Yes.
See, which is like the best merch, frankly. Like that's the best stuff. Like when you want to wear it, and you're not even thinking about the brand association. So yeah. But
so the first 20 minutes of the keynote felt like an exercise in delayed gratification. Like Apple was saying, you just hold on, When I started to talk about the improved CPU scheduler, I thought, really? Now?
Well, but that's a great thing. That it's one of those things that says that yes, you have an old phone, and no, you'll be disappointed later when we pull up that card that says that Siri.
So here's something for you, iPhone 11 users.
Again, saying that your old phone is going to feel faster. I think they're throwing out numbers that are going to be proven later on. But the scheduler means that many things are 30% faster. Launch is going to be faster. Things are going to feel snappier, and that's good stuff, particularly given how clear that the mission of this keynote was to reverse the damage done to Apple's reputation regarding their path on AI. Well, actually, they had. We'll get to it, but no one predicted, although it seems silly we didn't in retrospect, that they needed to make a pitch to Australia and the EU and the UK that, look, you don't have to impose all these new regulations about age verification and how we treat kids on our platform. Here is how thoroughly we plan for that on our own, and here are new stuff we're doing, partly in response to these new laws that you're making. I was really surprised that was such a long hunk of the keynote. Obviously at the start, they're not going to use that as like one more thing, as if they do that anymore. But that was, it's hard to remember a different keynote recently in which there wasn't such a clear, please get off our backs. Please stop honking down our snorkels. There are people who are exploiting kids on mobile platforms, but we are not one of the companies doing the exploiting. We are one of the companies that are protecting kids from being exploited. So trust us, work with us, and don't force us to play chicken with the releases in your entire geographical region because you're imposing laws that we don't feel that we can technically comply with.
Early on, there was the first appearance, kind of a little foreshadowing of Gaussian splats.
Oh yeah,
with the flyover in Maps, which I thought was pretty sweet. Google's been doing something similar, but they showed how the map flyovers now are going to really look pretty darn good. Yeah. And then speaking of kids, they did bring their VP of Health out to talk about child safety. And I think Apple, I don't know, I'm not an expert on what child controls are on the iPhone because I don't have kids anymore, at least not little ones. But it looked like they really focused on that and worked on that in order really to, I think, end around to circumvent or maybe even short circuit governmental regulation in the U.S. state by state, but also in the EU. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I that really did stand out to me that they spent so much time on the safety aspects, which I do think is important, but that seemed very purposely designed, I think, to your point, to get around, it's kind of like what the MPAA used to always say, like, regulate yourself before the government does it for you. And this seemed very much to try to be in vein of that. There was a certain irony, right, that like a lot of the whole iPad kid phenomenon and that sort of thing, like it exists because of Apple, right? Like whether, regardless of what sort of parental controls they put in place or not, a lot of these critiques that people have about how much screen time and how much time people spend with their devices as kids is predicated based on the success of iOS, right? Like it just is. And so that's an interesting, I think, needle for Apple to have to thread, because on the one hand, they don't want to admit that there's anything wrong with these devices. But on the other hand, and they want you to continue to buy them, and they want you to continue to buy a separate device for your child. It sure would be nice if, as a family, you could have multiple users with different profiles.
Well, I thought Dr. Desai said this. I thought it was interesting. She said, experts say children should not have access to social media under, I think she said 16.
Yeah.
18.
I think she said 16. And
I could be wrong.
And she also said, and I think this is very important, the defaults in the new child safeties are the ones the experts recommend. So 1 hour screen time, that kind of thing. And you can change those. They created a website, apple.com/child-safety, for parents to, and I think this was important too, to help parents understand how to do this. I like Apple's premise, which is, okay, we're going to put the defaults in that make your kids safe, but it is really up to the parents, not government, to decide how to raise your kids. And I think that was this kind of subtext of all of this.
I think they did a really, really good job of, what I love about these keynotes is that oftentimes, if they're using this time wisely, it's not necessarily here's feature A, feature B, feature C, feature D, here's a demo of how it works. It's basically, we're going to be releasing a whole bunch of things over the next year. Here is our philosophies behind them and things that, and our messaging we hope you keep in mind as you think about what our attitude is about
John,
these things.
Show my screen so we can go through this slideshow, because I think this is this is really important. These are the things that they care about.
Yeah, they say basically. I think there was a line another one that I basically wanted to write down word for word because it was so precisely put together and a really good single statement that Apple's philosophy is balancing learning, creativity, and connection while establishing boundaries.
Yeah,
which
we provide parents with guidance when setting time allowances shaped by expert health research. I think
American
that's
Academy
very
of Pediatrics. They had like another almost a bento slide of here are all the different research firms and health research organizations that we collaborate with and exchange information with.
Of the MPAA rating, Christina, one of them was a child safety group that is advocating ratings for kids for software.
No, and they're the ESRB. There have been a lot of things out there over the years that have done that. I will say, I feel like this website, and it's a good website. This website does not exist for parents. This website exists for the government. This website exists so that when they are called into Congress and they need to speak about it, that they have an entire litany of things. Because I promise you that the lawyers spent as much time on this page as anybody else did.
But I have to say, and we've had this conversation, Steve Gibson and I have had this conversation, the best way to do this kind of stuff is not to put it on the application developers, not to put it on Meta's shoulders, not to put it on government's shoulders, but to put it on the gatekeepers' shoulders, Apple and Google, because it's the easiest for them to know what age the user is and to tell apps, and they're doing this, there's an API that says which age group this user is in, and then let parents who know their kids best determine which age that kid is, whether it's emotional or physical or chronological. I think that's the best way to do it, to me, the safest way to do it.
Well, also, then they were talking about the declared age range API that they have for developers. They closed this hunk by basically because they are talking nominally to developers that you have a responsibility. We're going to give you these tools, but it's your responsibility to make sure you take advantage of these things.
Yeah, and I've heard some people say, well, parents just don't raise their kids right, so... But that's never the excuse for government to jump in and say, okay, well, we're going to raise them for you.
I mean, and absolutely right. I mean, the thing is, like,
unless it's really abusive, I guess. But
I mean, amongst the 3-hour conversation we could have about this, it's like if we have to have an age verification, I think that's a very good idea. I would trust Google to process that verification data securely and accurate and safely and anonymously, and then throw it away. And I would trust Apple to do that. I would not trust whatever lowest bidder contractor that whatever platform would trust with that. And to Apple's credit, also, I agree with everybody that this is mostly the reason why they put this in the keynote as opposed to a blog post or a video following up next week was they really wanted to put this front and center to lawmakers, to the public, to make sure they're going to win the public perception war. But they also added a whole bunch of really good logical features, like basically the ability to basically meter a time allowance. They're calling it time allowances. So instead of just simply limiting screen time, you can have allowances by category, grouping apps and websites, entertainment, games, social media, that kind of thing. They can also basically time fence access to that stuff and say that, well, on the weekends, you can have lots of fun, whatever you want to do. During school hours, you can only access A, B, and C that's related to school.
To me, most important was the defaults. They had defaults for all of those.
Yes.
So all a parent really has to do is this first thing, which is to go in settings, add your kid to the fam. Well, first thing a parent has to do is buy an iPhone for the kid. Although they do have a slide that says, and if your kid is too young for an iPhone, give them a watch. So, okay, this is good for Apple's bottom line. But all the parent has to do once they do that is say the age of the kid, and the defaults you can basically trust. And I think that the kid has to ask permission to download an app. The kid has to ask permission to watch something. I think this is how it should be.
The most important thing that's been added, arguably, is the new Ask to Browse feature. That is because before that, people were just going to Instagram.com or going to a site that then forwarded to Instagram.com. And despite having Instagram blocked, then they were able to just visit it via the web. Despite not having children, I have had to become an expert on these controls because I'm regularly talking about it on iOS Today and helping people figure that out. And the updates here are, I think, very good, especially as we talked about, Leo, the fact that we are getting clear guidance now on what should be suggested. And as you go through the setup process, which, by the way, the setup process before had so much cognitive load at the start with too many options, way too many choices, and no one's going to do it. Or if they are, they're going to take forever to get things set up. I mean, anecdotally, twice I've seen parents, get an iPad for their kid and then bail halfway through that process of setting it up this way, and then just create their child an adult account because they didn't want to deal with it. And what has happened here is the setup process for getting things going is much easier. And then from there, the controls that you have along the way it's like sliders and check boxes, and that's what people need. And so you see at the point, as Andy was talking about, these categories now that they do where it's schedule gated, it shows you for a child in this age range, we recommend 60 minutes of time with this. I think they've done a really good job with this. They've really nailed it.
This is the page you're talking about.
Yes, perfect.
It says, start off with guidance. We provide parents with guidance when setting time allowances based on a child's age and shaped by clinical and child development research. Parents can always adjust these settings, but notice there's a box that says within general guidance. So you can set it longer, but it's going to turn that off if you set it longer. I think this is exactly right. The defaults are well-researched, at least Apple says are well-researched. And when you just set the age, those defaults kick in, and then you can change it later. I think this is as easy as it could be and as appropriate as it should be. I think it's interesting, Christina, that you say this is a page for government. And I think you're absolutely right. That's at least a secondary audience.
And that doesn't look to me saying that doesn't mean that I don't think that this is good for them to have defaults or that this isn't a good thing. But when I look at this page, I'm going, no parent is going to browse this, right? And that's not the audience for this page.
Yeah, you're right.
This page is for the government, so that again, when they're called in and they will be, to talk about these things, they've already been hearing.
Well, Senator, let me show you what we're doing.
Exactly. They can literally go in and we've been, not only have we taken this seriously, but we've been proactive and we've made these as our defaults and we have these options. Again, I do wish that you had, it's great that you can have the child account, you can give them a phone or a watch or whatever. I would like to have multi-user support, at least on an iPad. I do feel like that when I heard them talking about that, I was like, what would really be great is if I didn't have to buy my child a dedicated device, if there could be a shared device. And if I could, even if I had to relaunch the Springboard, right? Even if I had to essentially log out, but if, for them to have access to things, I didn't have to give them their own, that I then have to control who, where is it stored or is it in their room or anything like that, right? That would be, I think, a lot better, because what winds up happening, at least in my family with my nephew, is that his mom won't let him have a tablet, which is completely fine and completely fair. But when he's allowed to have iPad time, he's using either mine or my mom's. Now it's under our supervision, but he doesn't have, an account or any of that. And I'm obviously not going to enable parental controls on my own account, but that means that I can't, let him, once he does get older, use it unobstructed. And that's a little bit annoying, but.
Well, we have practiced delayed gratification on this show. Those were the first few things in the keynote, but I know what you all want to know about, and that's what we're going to cover next, which is Apple Intelligence and the new Siri. And actually, Dustin in our club has already got in, and a couple of people said, the wait time isn't too long. So if you did install the developer preview and you've applied. Maybe you're going to get it. Maybe Micah, you'll get it before the show is over.
I'm hoping.
I'll show you one of the things Dustin tried on it right away in just a bit. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Christina Warren, Andy Anako, fill in for Jason Snell, who's getting, I presume, demos today, or maybe he just stuck around for Mandalorian Grogu. Well, I get. He said he wasn't going to go to the Steve Jobs seat. He actually went to the talk show.
He didn't see the special Apple Star Wars popcorn bucket that they're selling for only $40 at the Apple Store. I'm joking, but
and
I
it's
would not be
filled
surprised.
with little finder guys.
Little popcorn finder guys. We will talk about AI when we come back. You're watching Mac. Oh, I mentioned Jason's on here. That's, of course, Micah Sargent filling in. We're at Jason Snell. It's great to have Micah. You did iOS today this morning, and I'm sure you covered all of the iOS
stuff,
changes.
Yeah.
So that's a good show too, especially if you're a parent or you have an iPad and an iPhone, and you want to think about it. Apple did some very interesting things in this keynote without mentioning any new form factors. They mentioned, tell me you're making a new iPhone without
telling
us. We can mirror it.
We'll talk about that in just a second. They were very clever, I thought. They didn't even smirk. They were very cool, but we knew what they were talking about. Your show today brought to you by Pebble, Pebl. Hiring fast is one thing. Hiring fast and staying compliant across different countries, that's where things get tricky. And Pebble helps solve that tension. Pebble, P-E-B-L, makes global hiring simple. Through embedded compliance and AI-driven workflows, the Pebble platform takes the delays and guesswork out of going global. So founders and HR leaders can move fast without adding risk. Hiring abroad can take months when you do it on your own, but with Pebble, you can hire in over 185 countries in minutes and have your new hire onboarded by Monday. Most companies treat compliance as something to manage around, but by building a decade of expertise directly into the platform, Pebble removes the fear of mistakes and the dreaded regulatory blind spots. Instead of juggling separate tools for contracts, payroll, benefits, and compliance, Pebble brings everything together in a single platform that integrates with the tools teams already use. And it reduces redundant tasks and manual processes that can lead to error and delay. The result, a global team that's actually set up to succeed with accurate pay, real benefits, and the support they need to thrive wherever they are. So bottom line, anywhere is possible with Pebble. With global hiring simplified, founders and HR leaders can spend their time focusing on what and where comes next for their business. Pebble has a special offer for MacBreak Weekly listeners. Pebble's normally $399 a month per employee. Already a no-brainer considering what you get. Right now, there's a limited time offer on their site that makes it even easier to get started. Go to HiPebble.ai before it's gone. That's HIPEBL.ai. Terms and conditions apply. Nice discount. HiPEBL.ai. Get there before it's gone. Thank you, Pebble, for supporting Mac Break Weekly. So Dustin in our club twit said he applied, installed the developer beta on his Neo, obviously an early adopter, Dustin, and asked, in fact, he asked minutes ago, what is Mac Break Weekly? Mac Break Weekly, it says, you can show this, is a weekly podcast from the Twit Network that covers all things Apple. Now, this is good. It's up to date. Hosted by Leo Laporte, Annie Iannacco, Jason Snell, and Christina Warren.
Nice.
Yep. No mentions of that other guy. The show features a roundtable of tech journalists analyzing Apple news, hardware, software, and ecosystem strategies. I think this is pretty good. And what's interesting, it's very up to date.
Yeah, that's the important thing. I mean, they're using search grounding, which is a feature that all the major models have at this point. And so I'm not surprised, but that doesn't mean that I'm not happy to see it, right? And that's kind of going to be my mantra in our next segment is that none of, I think, of what they kind of showed off was at all surprising. None of it was groundbreaking, but I was still happy to see it. And I'll be even happier if it actually works.
Yeah. What's interesting because the stock market, now it's normal for the stocks to go down when the announcements happen. That the old adage is you buy on the rumor, you sell on the news. So traditionally, any event, any keynote, you're going to see stocks go down, but they've gone down kind of a lot.
But that's the whole NASDAQ. There's something else happening with there's
it's
been a
also
tech
going
sell-off.
down.
Yeah, there's a tech sell-off. The NASDAQ, the whole tech sector was down 3% today. So I don't know if we can draw any conclusions that it has anything to do with. It could just
be the tech sell. They're down $5.80 at 1.89%, which is I guess the NASDAQ's down about 2%. So that's actually right in there with it. And, really it's not what happens today. It's what happens next week and the week after. But so you don't think that that people are looking at what Apple announced? I think some are and saying too little, too late.
I mean, some might be, but I mean, I don't know. WWDC is always difficult because this is the pre-announcement, so the developers can have things ready to go for September. But September is when we're really going to see the real fruits of all of this, right? We're going to see the new phones.
And that was one of the reasons
that can happen.
Yahoo Finance said the stock went down is because Apple didn't give a definitive date. They didn't say.
Well, for the Apple Intelligence, sure, but I don't know. But I mean, I think we all know that even if it's not in a finalized form, there will be some version of Siri AI on a new iPhone and on last year's iPhones, iPhone Pro and Air anyway, in September.
You've been in the AI space now. You worked at DeepMind. You work with Copilot at GitHub. So you really, more than anybody, probably know what's going on with AI. It feels like Apple is catching up. Not so much plowing new furrows, but that's a terrible, not so much advancing the thing, but just kind of catching up with what everybody else is doing. Is that right?
I would say so. Yes. I would say, and that I don't think has to be a bad thing, right? Like, I think that it would be, and I want to be clear. I want to temper my critique in a complimentary way, because I do actually think that this is a good thing. They did not pretend like any of this was revolutionary, which I appreciated, right?
Yes.
Now, 2 years ago, when it was all smoke and mirrors, and it was any of us who knew better were like, this doesn't feel right. They were pretending what they were doing 2 years ago was revolutionary.
And then they found out they couldn't do it.
And but not only that, what they were showing off 2 years ago, some of that wasn't even revolutionary. It was just like, and then they couldn't do it either, right? So this time, it did seem like they had very purposeful, and yeah, I do feel like they were canned demos and canned experiences and set up scenarios that may or may not be realistic. But it definitely is not a, skate to where the puck is going moment. I'm not going to pretend that. I don't think it necessarily has to be, because the biggest thing that they have to overcome is, the last 2 years of stasis, where the things they promised just didn't pan out, and they have to eat, a crow on that. And then I think, what they kept reinforcing, and this is going to always be, I think, their secret sauce, no matter who supplies their foundational model, no matter what they do special on top of it, any of that, is that they control the ecosystem. And so if you live in the Apple ecosystem, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, Apple has the opportunity to offer the most complete experience. And so
Mark Gurman
and that's the big thing.
Did get the design right. It is now all in the dynamic island, no more glow around the whole screen. I like the feature of you can get a question and answer in that dynamic island and then pull it down.
I like that too.
And get more stuff.
I also like that
really good.
I also like that it's an app. There was some, I think, I was.
There's a Siri app now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was on the Cult of Mac podcast a week before last, and we were talking about whether or not that would happen, and I was hoping that it would, but I was like, no, maybe they'll wait a year. I'm glad they did that, because I think that there's a Gemini app, there's a ChatGPT app, there's a Claude app, there's a Perplexity app, there's a Copilot app. There are all these other apps out there. Even if it's not something that people have to use, I'm glad that they at least created it, because I think that is now the expectation.
Although you can say, hey, Shlomo, you can press the
right, you can press the button. You don't have to use the app, but I'm glad they had one, just because the big difference, I think, now versus where they were 2 years ago is that no one is going to be coming into this, well, very, very few people are going to be coming into using Siri AI who do not have previous chat AI experiences. Right. Like, that's the thing, is that you might have, a couple kind of holdouts who have never used those types of things, but that's going to be the vast majority of people have been using third-party experiences. They're not tied to Siri at all. And I don't mean, Siri that you've connected to ChatGPT. I mean people who have been using on their iPhone third-party chat applications. So I think that it's a good thing to have your own, yes, I can, listen from wherever, I can pull it up from a button, I can pull it up from the dynamic island, but also recognizing that there are habits that people have formed over the last couple of years that are not going to go away. And that, hopefully for Apple, Apple Intelligence and Siri AI can now slot into where they used to go to Claude or ChatGPT or whatever.
Yeah, I was very impressed with how smoothly the experience translates from one experience to the other. The idea of when it makes sense for just simply there are times you're just holding up the phone and you just want to speak a command or ask a question and get an answer. Dynamic Island expands. It gets this little bubble that says that yes, this is Siri and this is handling it. But then if you simply swipe down from that, then you get that full screen ChatGPT, Gemini app type of experience that people are used to. And then even on the Mac, where you can surface Siri in so many different places, it still expresses itself in the space of what would be a very, very comfortable transition from the phone experience to this desktop experience without making you feel as though now you're basically being teleported into Siri land amidst all these other projects you did. Again, I mean, we talked about this last week, but Apple's invention of the dynamic island is just paying off so many different benefits. I can't think of a different way. I can't think of another way to put a smart assistant into a device that feels so natural, so that the presence of this assistant that's basically at the desk just outside your office waiting for you to call upon it, and then it can just simply walk in and suddenly be the focus of this conversation or be a partner in trying to solve a problem. It's such a really, really nice way of doing things. I don't think anybody will claim that Apple showed off anything in Siri AI that we haven't seen done by all these other assistants over the past couple of years. I don't think, however, I've ever seen one that's integrated so well into the day-to-day experience of using a phone.
To me, that's the key of all this. This is now, even if people have used AI, this is now in everybody's hands, in everybody's pockets. This is going to make it much, and I don't think actually OpenAI or Anthropic or even Google should be threatened by any of this, because it's just making this commonplace, and it's something that people expect and do. And I think Apple's done it. This is what their skill is. They've productized it in a way that is very accessible, very appealing. Yeah. Again, all of this is predicated on the notion that they're going to actually deliver, that this is not just a canned demo. Although Micah put in an article from Julie Bort at TechCrunch, who's pointing out that because Apple had a $250 million settlement for false advertising,
right,
they have been a little bit more careful. Apparently on the talk show, they told John Gruber that these were all done without editing, not necessarily on the first take. I don't think they said
I'm sure it wasn't, but they,
multiple takes.
I'm sure they would do multiple takes, and that makes sense, right? I mean, like I just know from doing.
They call it a live-like format.
That's
sort
fine.
Of live.
In context, I think that's okay. This is a developer conference. They're showing something that's not even available to the public in beta yet. If even in the developer's hands, it's not in wide beta yet. So long as they don't make that same mistake before, as long as you're not looking for, hey,
well,
look,
Micah, when we were watching it, Micah, I even said this. It's good it's slow.
Yes.
Because otherwise I would know that they had faked it. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost, and I think that there might be a little bit of building that in now. It's a little bit like what we're seeing where some people are putting little mistakes into their words so that they're not done by AI,
you
right?
have to now.
Yeah. So I think I'm not surprised that we had that sort of lull almost.
When we were designing Tech TV 26 years ago, 28 years ago, one of the things I really hated about all the other previous computer shows was how edited they were. And I said, we're going to do it live. And if it crashes on set, it's crashing. If it takes us 2 hours to install Linux, we're going to take 2 hours. Yeah. I want people to have the real experience, because otherwise people feel bad. They go, gee, it never worked that well for me. Is there something wrong with me? Yeah. So I'm glad. I think being honest, whether or not you had to pay $250 million settlement, is a good thing. So I'm hoping that they are being honest. I really are.
What they did what they had to do. They achieved what they had to achieve. They didn't have to achieve that. Hey, well, look, here's an actual live. We're doing this right now live in front of the entire audience. They didn't have to do that. What they had to do is make sure that they communicate that this is something we're still developing. It's not done yet. We're not even going to give you a date when it's going to be released. However, we have finalized what the interface is going to be like and what is going to be a typical sort of interaction. And they showed off mechanisms for interaction that I think are very, very appealing.
Well thought out. This is their skill. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I had my Pixel phone, and it's set up basically the same way as Siri is on the other phone, where you just hold down a button and you basically talk to it. And I was basically echoing whatever they were doing on the demo phones. I was trying to do with Gemini. And feature for feature, they were kind of being matched. But again, it didn't feel like, basically the assistant was kind of taking over the entire screen. It didn't feel like it's not that it was a subpar experience, but it wasn't nearly as clean an experience. It made me feel as though if I had Claude AI, or if I had opened, if I had any other client attached to that button, I would have the exact same experience. Now, again, we're still sort of like at the start of the runway for Gemini's integration into agentic apps and controlling other apps through Android. So maybe we'll see some more payoff of that later on. But for what Apple chose to show during its developer keynote versus what Google chose to show during its developer keynote, I really think Apple, even in terms of things that are not going to be shipping for several months on either side, Apple told a much, much better story.
Well, I have to point out that apparently Anthropic was waiting until the day after Apple's announcement, because they just released Fable.
Yep.
Their new model, which they say is based on Mythos. This is the newest Anthropic model. And of course, this is on the heels of Opus 4.8. I think it's less than a month after 4.8 came out.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll all be playing with this to see. I'm sure the token cost will be high, but
Yeah, it is. It's double.
It's very high,
It's double Opus.
but it's supposed to have fewer errors. Like, so it's unclear like what that will be. But yeah, it's double the tokens, but it's supposed to do better on shorter runs.
I ran it on something that was a more creative thing that I had done with Opus before, just to see if it could do better at being that form of creative. And I was very impressed with the output thus far. But the whole time I'm going, oh my God, double the tokens, double the tokens.
Yeah. Well, I still have my Max subscription for a few more days. So maybe I'll try to mess with it and see what I can find out. Wow. That, clearly it's very obvious they waited till the day after WWDC and said, okay.
Yeah. Not even to trump Apple, but knowing, because look, we're going to get our thing reported on a lot more heavily if we can basically be an Apple slipstream when everyone's talking about Apple's AI as well. I mean, it's an exciting time. You love to see a time where everybody is working to create the best product and to get the most loyalty from its customers. In 5 or 10 years' time, it'll be, of course, through fishiness, sketchiness, subterfuge, and lying.
Might already
right now,
be
however,
there.
it's
We
the
could be there,
competitive
Andy.
sort of thing.
You're being an optimist.
Oh well, all I'm saying is that every time I give my attention to one of these apps for a little while, I think, oh my God, that didn't do that like 2 months ago.
Oh, it's amazing.
I mean, I could go bankrupt with all the subscriptions that I want to have with all these different AI apps, and I don't know if I can afford to basically have every limit that I want to blow past on every different service blown past, because the things that you can do, if you blink for 2 months, there's suddenly a big problem of yours that's being solved. And again, that's not going to last forever. At some point, they're going to Instagram this whole thing and make you regret that you were one of these early. You're going to regret that, oh, did I really make a blog post that says there's this thing called Instagram and it's the most wonderful thing ever and I hope it never goes away? Yeah, I said that, and then someone came along and ruined it, but we're not in the ruined phase yet.
Yeah. There is some question in my mind about how much Google there is in all of this. Apple was at great pains to say, this is our model. These are our models. The on-device model is Apple Foundation model. The cloud model is an App and Foundation model. And they did say, not in the keynote, and I don't even know if they said in the platform, I think they did, but they certainly in some of the sessions, that they are running with NVIDIA chips on Google servers in some cases for the most challenging. Mm-hmm. A lot of the features felt like Gemini, felt like Nano Banana, even the on-device. But they're saying, no. But my question is, well, what are you paying Google $1 billion a year for if you're not running Gemini? What do you think, Christina? Are they running Gemini? Or are they?
No,
what are they doing?
They are, but they're running a customized version. Well, I mean, they're not running consumer Gemini, right? Is the way I read it.
So some Apple, Google,
right? Well, what I
beast with two backs.
What I would guess, and I don't have any inside knowledge about this at all, and with the disclosures that I used to work on Gemini, but I don't know anything about this. What I would guess would be that they have access to the core foundational model, that they are doing their own post-training atop of it and customizing it and making their own adjustments. They are running things in private cloud compute, either in their own data centers or in quarantined off parts of Google data centers that are dedicated exclusively for Apple's use. And that's how they can do the private compute stuff. And that many of the capabilities and that many of the tasks are going to be very similar to what you would get from Gemini if you were to access it just from the API. But are going to be, customized, and there will be some differences based on however Apple wants to tweak it. And this isn't uncommon. Like you see this, Cursor has done something similar with their composer models that they include as an option, where they use the Chemi open weight models and they do their own post training on top of it. I think it's something like that.
So it might be distilled Gemini.
It's distilled Gemini, and I think that Apple can have their own post training and their own information that they're going to be feeding it that might customize it. But the model experience itself, I would be shocked if there weren't many vast similarities just to overall performance. Like they can tweak the voice, they can maybe tweak, some of the output preferences, but I would be shocked if many of the core, capabilities and whatnot are not the same as what Google's doing. That said, and this is what I was trying to get at a couple of weeks ago on the show, that is not to say that like everything that you can do in an ultimately optimized version of Gemini running on a Pixel device that Google is controlling, you can now do on an iOS device, and vice versa. The same way that if I was wanting to just pay Google directly for API access and wanting to customize aspects of the model, I could maybe get a slightly different experience, and I could maybe recreate parts of what Google lets you do, if you're in their ecosystem, but it wouldn't be out of the box giving me all those capabilities. So I think they're doing their own training, their own adjustments, but they're using the work from Google. I don't know which versions they have access to. I assume they're probably given access to the newest things as soon as they come out and can make adjustments as necessary. But I would kind of look at it, I think, as maybe like not a fork, but like that's probably the best analogy I can think of the model versus just a direct copy.
Yeah.
So Apple has a paper, the third generation of Apple's foundation models, that they talk about all of this, but they're still a little cagey on what Google's. It says for AFM3 Cloud Pro, that's the highest, most demanding tasks, we worked with Google and NVIDIA to extend private cloud compute to NVIDIA GPUs in Google Cloud while maintaining the same guarantees for users' privacy, so encryption and so forth.
Right.
I have to say, Apple has, of course, a lot of machine learning research and smart scientists, but we've never really been able to play with these Apple models. I've seen a lot of white papers. I don't know how good the Apple models are. To break this barrier, AFM3 Core Advanced introduces a novel, sparsely activated architecture built on instruction following pruning, IFP, a technique developed by Apple researchers. They're claiming a lot of innovation here. The problem is they haven't been out in the world like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic have been. This is...
And look, I mean, they are probably correct in that they've accomplished a lot of really unique things and how they're able to especially access this on hardware. And I think the way that they're doing this for cloud and local is very unique and is interesting. Somebody got mad at me because I commented that this was very clearly them punting and kind of admitting that the on-device model story wasn't going to work and that most of what you do is going to run on the cloud.
Image Playground is my example. They went from a crap product based clearly on AFM to something that looks like it's pretty clearly based on Nano Banana.
Yeah.
Okay. How did they make that leap? Is it all AFM or is it a little bit of Google in there? I'm sure that they started from my assumption would be, and I don't know if they did this or not. Is distilling enough to make it that good?
I think that they probably threw away everything they had before and then started rebuilding atop the Gemini foundational stuff is what I would guess.
Yeah.
But they're making enough changes that they don't have to call it pure, Gemini. They can say, the base of this, and they can still call it an Apple foundational model. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure it's also part of the agreement, right? That if we do our little thing to it, then it's ours.
Well, what's interesting is Apple has let Google talk about this entirely up till now, right? This is the first time Apple's even talked about it.
But also like an 8-word statement where you feel like every word costs the legal teams of both companies $83,000 in legal time to agree on what these 8 words were going to be. Right. It's like a nuclear.
It seems very carefully
between,
shaded, right?
Yeah,
Really...
I was going to add that. Christina, was that there is apparently Craig Federighi and the rest of like the AI team that led segments of the keynote regarding AI. Gave like a tech talk to press right afterward. And basically they didn't say a whole lot more except for Craig promised to say a whole lot more like later. Like they described it as 9 to 5 Mac, I think has a quote. blah, 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 to our AFM Fusion model, image model. These are the models that are the product of our collaboration with Google, and you'll hear more about that when we continue. So barely an expansion on what they've been saying before is that we are collaborating with Google on creating new Apple Foundation models. The language, I think that the language seems to be crafted, and you can, I wonder what you think about that, is if they're trying to at least feint towards this is not Gemini in any way, shape, or form. This is simply
that's the impression they want to give.
And we knew what the bathroom wanted to look like, but we didn't know anything about plumbing, so we hired this guy to help us learn how to plumb in this room.
Christina, where's this quote that you just posted in the
that was from that machine learning link that you had. I'll put that in other, but I want to read this because I think this is interesting, and I think it goes to kind of to your point, Andy. Like, they are absolutely not seeing Gemini anywhere, but they said to support our new Apple Intelligent experiences, we significantly scaled pre-training on the latest generation of cloud TPU accelerators.
Those are Google processors.
TPU is a Google thing. So cloud TPU accelerators, that means Google Cloud. All models shared a common initial foundation. Now, we can read into that however we want, before specializing for the respective architectures and use cases, adding multi-model capabilities like audio, image understanding, long context reasoning, and high-quality visual generation. We then expanded our post-training process, combining supervised fine-tuning with multi-stage reinforcement learning.
Boy, you have to really guess in this. Where did Google come in? It came in somewhere. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so it might even be as simple as a thing where, they're lawyers and everybody's able to say, well, even though the foundations that we're using are the same foundations that are used for Gemini, or what the consumer version of Gemini is known for, we're not calling it that because it has enough differences that it's not. But to get the Apple foundational model and to get Gemini, you're starting with the same base, would be my guess, right? And there might be divergences, at a certain point. It might even be now, right, where we're with enough of the post-training stuff, there are enough divergences. But I think that those core model capabilities, those had to have come from their own admission. They came from like a shared thing. It doesn't seem like this was a thing that Apple just suddenly developed themselves. Like, they're using Google's cloud and capabilities. So I don't know.
So you're saying that this is definitely not like Gemini with the serial numbers filed off. This is you think that this is like a new thing, but based on
I think it's based on Gemini. I don't think it's Gemini with its serial filed off, but I also feel like in a lot of use cases, there's not going to be a big difference between whether it was or not. And that, I think, is honestly also a thing that we should all acknowledge, is that a lot of these large models at this point, there are areas where they can be specifically better at one thing or another, but they're all really good. They all do really similar things. And that's a good thing, right? But like, that makes it hard if you're a model provider. How do you distinguish yourself? But if you're Apple, you don't have to worry about that as much, right? Because the end user doesn't care who ultimately did their research to get to the foundational model that's on their phone. All they care about is Siri going to work or not? Is the image that is generated going to look like garbage, or is it going to actually be useful or not, right? Is the photo stuff going to be good or not? Like, that's all they care about. They don't care about what research team ultimately trained the data set that led to the creation of this model.
As someone who has so much experience, like with not just AI but also development, what do you? There's a question that I keep trying to figure out, which is that the deal with Google has always been described as, no, we're not basically going to be using Google forever. We're not basically choosing it as our de facto provider. This is to help us get through to the next thing when we have our own model. Do you think that the way that these things get built, does this sound like at some point they're going to unplug the stuff that is basically part of the contract that Google might have some licensing rights to, and plug back in something that they've been developing alongside it? Or is it something where at some point in 2 or 3 years, their own model will have had learned enough from the Gemini influence that I basically, so we're not talking about a Lego brick that they remove and then replace it with the one that they don't have to pay for. It's just going to get smarter and smarter and smarter until there is no more reliance on whatever it is that they have to pay Google for.
Yeah, I think that's that's probably their ultimate goal. I don't know how realistic that is or how much that matters, right? I mean, like, part of the issue too, this is what's interesting, what they have talked about, and they talked about this again with the private compute stuff and other things, is that they need Google's data centers.
Right.
they need the TPUs, they need the hardware. Like the first time, and this was actually something that me and a friend of mine who used to work at Apple, we were at the talk show. We were listening to JG talk about like the Apple Silicon and how they were doing, all the Apple Intelligence stuff, in their servers and whatnot. And we were both we were texting back and forth going, this doesn't make sense. Like they don't, from what we've seen, they don't have the architectural kind of, infrastructure in place to do this sort of thing. And that turned out to, I think, be accurate because they're having to use now, they're even saying specialized NVIDIA hardware in Google's data centers, right? They're walking back the fact that they could just use Apple Silicon, and that's okay.
So you think it's mostly compute?
I don't think it's just compute. I think that it's awesome model stuff, but I think compute is definitely a part of it. I don't.
It's ironic because Google's paying XAI $1 billion a month
to get more, to get more, and part of that is, I'm sure, to be able to serve all of their customers, right? Because like Apple isn't Google's
maybe
only
more
customer.
for inference and training, right?
Exactly. Like, and it's for Vertex, it's for all these other aspects, right? Like they have all these customers, but I'm sure that, for instance, I'm not going to make any assumptions here, but I would be very surprised if, for instance, anything that Apple was doing was going to live in any data center that was not fully controlled by Google, right? But the fact that Apple said that they are running these things on custom NVIDIA and custom Google hardware, that is an admission right there that says the models that we built, our hardware is not enough to be able to run and do inference on these things, right? Which is okay. I as an end user, I would much rather have the models be good. And if that means you need to use somebody else's hardware for that purpose, great.
You think Apple has enough compute to build the models? I can see they may not have enough for the inference, but they may.
I don't know. Well,
I don't know where are these data centers?
Well, right. I was going to say Apple for years, that's been kind of the dirty secret, is like they do have some of their own data centers, but a lot of
Azure.
They did use Azure, and then I think they moved to Amazon, and a lot of it for years and years has been Google Cloud, which I think is probably why the Gemini thing made some sense, or the Google deal made some sense. I don't know if it's so much even like the compute. I don't know if Apple Silicon, I don't know that if they've created truly like a device specific thing. Maybe now they're getting closer to that place where they would have the hardware that would do what they would need to do.
It's really interesting. I think that the rest of the story will be told as we get access to it and so forth. But it's a very interesting question, which Apple has been a little bit slightly cagey about. By the way,
about it. And I think it's okay.
Just a second ago, I ran Fable, the latest Anthropic model in Claude Code against a code base that Claude Code had built and audited many times, and found numerous.
That's so funny. That was the first thing I did with it
security
too.
flaws.
I was like, look for some stuff that I had.
So it says nothing's terrible, but it found quite a few things, and it's fixing them right now. So I think Fable does have some security capabilities. Holy cow. We're going to take a little break and come back with more, including a little hint Apple dropped about perhaps future hardware. There were no hardware announcements. You know what I was really shocked by? Talking all about Siri and voice and AI. They didn't mention HomePods. They didn't mention any other devices. It was iPhone, iPad, and Mac. iPhone, iPad, and Mac. And that surprised me a little bit. I thought that was an opportunity to talk about HomePods.
Very, very, very quickly, because I know you're going to commercial, but I kind of assumed they'd be too busy for HomePods and stuff like that. But I was very surprised they didn't have at least like a couple of minutes of, hey, we are like kind of like the number one hardware platform for AI. We can't, not saying we can't keep Mac.
They didn't mention minis and studios.
But basically saying, hey, look, here's how good our M5 is, and here's how it's benchmarking against other chips that are not.
They did in the platform, and they had actually a very good seminar. What do you call these things? The little breakout. After the State of the breakout session on running agentic AI on Apple Silicon.
Yes,
and it was quite good. And
it was almost 100% like consumer oriented. Only the very, very end of the keynote. Only the very, very end did they even mention, but here's a whole bunch of stuff about Xcode. Try not to notice that we were kind of like showing you that we're working on a foldable. But anyway.
The funny thing on the Xcode session was they spent a lot of time, maybe this was in the platform. I think it was in the platform. They spent a lot of time talking about how now you can open an Xcode project without naming it first.
Yes. Yeah, I picked up on that too.
That was like a big feature, huh?
Well, I mean,
new themes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what's happening in this agentic, in this Claude, GPT-5, Copilot, whatever driven world is that if you are somebody, especially who's new to starting a project, the first time you are faced with, opening up Xcode, it is not an easy process.
No, it's true.
And it is a pain. I think Jason Snell even mentioned or wrote something about the process of getting started is just way too convoluted. And it is. And that's been the case for years. I think themes are, it's funny it's taken them that many years to do that. But the fact that you can just start without having to go through all the different gyrations, clearly that was aimed at vibe coders. Clearly that's aimed at, kind of the next generation of developers. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's take a little break. We'll come back with more. We'll play some of the new voices for you. Again, this is stuff that we've been, others have been doing for ages, and Apple's just finally catching up. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Christina Warren is here. It's nice to have Christina on developer relations at GitHub, but she was also at DeepMind. She's worked with these tools. She knows a little bit about this stuff.
This is one of those episodes where my mandate is, Andy, shut up and listen and ask her some questions that you can use in the stuff you're writing this week.
Well, but I was going to say,
she's really, really valuable.
To your credit, you're also a Google user and you have a lot of experience with Gemini on Android. So I think that experience is also very valuable because you've seen this stuff in play on your phone for a long time now. Yep. Some of the photo editing features and so forth are just really basically clones. Which is why I really feel like there's a lot of Gemini in this, despite what they say. It feels like a lot
when
of
we
Gemini.
talk about the voice stuff and the natural language stuff, it's like, I hear Gemini.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. And Micah Sargent's here, who is, of course, our iOS guru, host of iOS Today. Was Rosemary excited about shortcuts?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things she's looking forward to is having people
of vibe coding,
send in their shortcuts requests with how Siri AI created the shortcut. And then she will do one sort of without looking at what Siri did and compare the two. So we're going to see kind of how a trained model behaves versus how a trained human being behaves on it, just to look for the differences.
I apologize for the crosstalk. My AI Fable is telling me all the wonderful things it's done.
And I updated this and I changed this.
Yeah. I said, well, go ahead, fix it. Why not? That's so I'll sleep better tonight. Although I have to say, I don't have to sleep better tonight because I have a Helix mattress, our sponsor for this portion of MacBreak Weekly. I always have a good night's sleep with my Helix mattress. Lisa and I decided to upgrade about a year ago when I read that you should replace your mattress. I didn't know this, every 6 to 10 years. The mattresses wear out. Who knew this? I was rotating it and all that stuff, but no, they start to sag. They start to overheat. But it's so important. I think sometimes we don't pay enough attention to our sleep. And as I get older, that is more and more important to long-term health, to fighting Alzheimer's, for instance. And of course, whatever your age, a good night's rest sets you up for a great day. You got to feel good. Summer's almost here. Now would be a good time to upgrade to a Helix mattress. No more night sweats. They sleep nice and cool and comfy. No back pain. No motion transfer. You got a pet? Every time our cat jumped on the bed, I thought, earthquake. And I have to say, I'm really glad we chose Helix. We went and we did all the shopping. We read all the reviews. And we decided, and I think you should do the same, not to settle for one of those mattresses on box made overseas with low quality, who knows what kind of materials in there, and then shipped on a container ship for months. Smells like bunker fuel when you open the box. Rest assured, that's not the case with Helix. Your Helix mattress is assembled, packaged, and shipped from Arizona, and they make it to order. So it's brand new. You can also take the Helix Sleep Quiz. We did this. 60 seconds to find your perfect mattress. It matches you with the perfect mattress based on what your personal preferences are and your sleep needs. We got the mattresses just right for us. And I have to say, our experience has been very positive. In fact, it matches exactly Helix's own studies. They did a Westbury sleep study measuring participants' sleep performance after doing what we did, switching from their old mattress to a Helix mattress. They found that 82% of participants saw an increase in their deep sleep cycle. Mine almost doubled. Participants on average achieved an additional 25 minutes of deep sleep per night. Now that is almost doubling because, typically half an hour to an hour is all you get. But that's the most important one, especially for keeping your brain healthy, clears out all those, all that junk that your brain accumulates during the day. Participants on average achieve 39 more minutes of overall sleep per night. And I have to tell you, I got both, and I feel great when I wake up now. For 10 years, Helix has consistently ranked at the top across the top independent review sites. I mean, the big guys, they've been tested and reviewed by Wired, Forbes, The Wirecutter. Everybody loves Helix. Helix delivers your mattress right to your door with free shipping in the U.S. and rest easy with seamless returns and exchanges. The Happy with Helix guarantee provides a risk-free customer-first experience, ensuring you're completely satisfied with your new mattress. Go to helixsleep.com/MacBreak right now, 20% off site-wide during their summer savings. That's helixsleep.com/MacBreak for 20% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. And this offer does end June 11th, so you only have a few more days. And if you're listening after the sale ends, don't worry. Always great deals. Check them out. helixsleep.com/MacBreak. And we thank them so much for supporting MacBreak Weekly. I thank them for my great night's sleep. So Zarf, Christina, is at the Apple Store shopping for you right now.
Amazing.
He says, your MBW roaming correspondent is at the Apple Park Visitor Center. Ask me anything.
Amazing.
There's a man in a suit and sunglasses and earpiece guarding a matte black Cybertruck in a handicapped spot.
What in the world?
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. I want a picture of that. Maybe the guy would keep you from doing that.
A shout out to David Murphy, who went over the weekend to get me one of the new crew necks that they are selling.
He does have the new water bottles, and I think you said to put me down for one of those as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Zarf.
Yeah, great job, Zarf.
Our man on the spot. Let me play some samples for you. Apple, of course, one of the things they talked about was how much better the voice is. This is the current Siri.
I said in the book club group chat, are we still on for Saturday? I only have one more chapter to go. Melvin replied, I'm in.
That's not that bad, but this is what the new AFM3 Core Advanced will sound like.
Kai said in the book club group chat, are we still on for Saturday? I only have one more chapter to go. Melvin replied, I'm in. We're meeting at Lisa's house this time, right? And Lisa replied,
so expressiveness is definitely dialed up. I don't know if
Listen, I mean, when you think about vocal, if they're introducing vocal fry, which is something that like a voice coach would try to eliminate from you. It's kind of like, remember the early days of like digital studio effects where like, why don't we, it will look more real if we put in a lens flare, and suddenly lens flares were everywhere.
Which
it's
is
like
a defect.
The way to sell it is to introduce ums and pauses that don't seem quite natural. And that's one of the things I associate with Gemini, the voice that I hear off my phone and off my Google devices. And that's why when I heard those demos, I thought, oh, okay, I think that's part of Gemini. But isn't it cool? I wish that they had the Android had the feature where just two sliders were just let me change the pace of it and let me change.
Yes, they did show that.
The tonality of it
on the new Siri. You can actually change the voice.
I also, but wouldn't it be great if you could also like have the same voice but different profiles for different things? Like I would love it. I want notifications to be kind of fast, but when it's reading me like documents, when it's reading me long emails, I need to go a little bit more slowly so I can absorb the information. I wish that would be a great refinement in a future version of this. Again, these details, they're doing such a good job of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that companies like 11 Labs are light years ahead of this.
Oh, of course.
Now.
Well, because they're Kentucky Fried Chicken. They make one thing and they do it well.
They do really good voices. In fact, one of my good friends,
scary good,
yeah,
criminally
scary good. One of my good friends uses a kind of quirky voice for his agent. I have just kind of a British voice, but he uses this voice, Brother Wayne Hudson.
Back in my day, when you said you were a Christian, it really meant something.
See, these are really
meant
good.
You had fully surrendered to Christ.
But what he does is he turns it way down so it's slow, and then he puts punctuation in the middle of words so it stutters a little bit, and it sounds like there is some human in your machine. I mean, it is really kind of almost scary.
Yeah, one of the
That's
highlight
11
features
labs.
of at Google I/O was, hey, now we have regional accents as well, not just
Right.
like American regionals, but in every single territory in which we have voices.
I love
we
regional
have regional accents.
Yeah. I always use British for my.
Well, you also have to
just to make it
distinguish. I think a lot of us use more than one synthetic voice for different tasks, and you need to have just like you want to have it's great when you have different people in a meeting and they have different types of voices. So you know exactly.
I
who's
do that with
speaking,
my agent.
and exactly.
Yep. I told my agent, if it's an emergency, use a different voice. If it's just a bland announcement, use a different voice. And so I feel like there's a whole host inside my machine, which is a little.
My Siri and my Gemini are from different parts of the planet for exactly that reason, so that I can make sure that I don't mistake one for the other.
Exactly. It's like having a ringtone. Yeah. Apple did kind of sneakily put in some things. For instance, Mac Rumors caught this little tidbit, Julie Clover. Among other things, you can share a phone number with two different phones. Why would anybody want to have the same number on two different phones? Or maybe you wanted a folding phone, but you wanted a better camera on an iPhone 18 Pro Max. I'm thinking, how much money can I spend with that?
Well, the thing is, there is foldables, particularly with Samsung and OnePlus, and have been around long enough that there is marketing research. And I was very, very surprised. Most people who have foldables will trade in their old phone and put the money towards the foldable, and that becomes their primary device. They're not carrying around two different phones. So I don't know if it's about that, but they did have something like in the actual keynote itself that at worst was a little bit cheeky. They showed off in that little Xcode section. They have a new device simulator called Device Hub, and they said, and you can just change things dynamically. Mm-hmm. And they had here's the iPhone simulator, and then someone grabs the side of it and stretches it out into a horizontal thing, and now it's not. Now it's an
iPad.
Why would you ever want to do that?
It's a wide iPhone. No, but I did have to freeze frame that and double check. It's like, no, it's not. There's not like the buttons on the window. It is a widescreen iPhone app, and I know that we can't help but to scrutinize every single detail. But it could be just something very, very cheeky that they're doing because they know that people know what's going on, and might have nothing to do with how you simulate a transition from like an iPhone to an unfolded iPhone Ultra. But the idea of like if it's still like full screen, but there are not going to be window management toggles or features onto it, that would be interesting, wouldn't it be?
Well, I have to say in the sessions, they definitely emphasized, make sure, don't assume anything about screen aspect ratios. Make sure in your Xcode that you use our new responsive design.
Yeah.
So I think they're not hiding it. They're not smirking when they say it, but it's pretty clear. They're not hiding it either. So this is all for
rumors have it that now they actually have working prototypes in the hands of carriers, and they're actually using them like for outside testing.
Yeah, we're seeing dummies. I mean, Sonny Dickinson released his dummies. I'll show you that they really look like it's an iPad Mini when it's unfolded. You typically see these once manufacture starts.
Yeah,
they send them to case makers and so forth. So from Sonny Dixon dummy units. I'm definitely buying this, but the problem is I really want the good camera, and I know the iPhone 18 is going to have an amazing good camera.
That's where I'm at too, and so I am actually happy. Like I don't
numbers.
I was gonna say I don't care like if it was just for this purpose or not, because Andy's probably right about the research, but certainly, and there are a lot of use cases actually. Like if you have a work phone and you also but you want work stuff on, but you want to be able to still access that other device. Like as a two phone user, I deal with that all the time. So I'm happy to have this feature, period. But I'm with you, Leo. I'm at this point where I'm like, I'd been on the fence. I'd been like, all right, I'm just going to trade in, or not trade in. I'm going to keep my iPhone 17 Pro Max for another year, pay off the Apple upgrade plan, just, keep it and then buy the Fold. And now I'm like, maybe I just trade it in and have have the 18 and the.
I almost bought a first generation Pixel Fold because they were on Woot.com for $450, which for me is a viable purchase as a second thing to maybe sort of play with and get some hands-on experience with. And then I remember that, well, this is the first, not only just the first generation of a phone, but the first generation of a folding phone and the first generation of a folding phone made by Google, which does not have a good reputation with the first generations of anything. But yeah, I am with you. It's like, I don't think I could live with just a folding phone as my one thing. It has to, the first time that I want to take a type of picture and I can't, and I realize that I could have saved $500 and had a twice as good camera as this. And how many times do I absolutely need to use this as an unfolded iPad? Unfortunately, I'm not wealthy enough to be able to bear both of those costs at once, unless the thing was just so over the top great. And the thing is, we're still at a point where if you're getting a foldable, you're going to have to give up something if you're going to get that one nifty bar trick.
What else? Let's see. The photo stuff. Mm-hmm. They show this a lot. I feel like this is Gaussian splatting as well, where you can take a photo, you can outfill it, you can move it around and reframe it. So they have three buttons. There was reframe. There was not outfill, but it was effectively
it's expand.
Expand. Yeah.
Let's see here.
That was pretty clean up, extend, and spatial reframing.
That's it.
And spatial reframing, they said actually that comes from Vision ProTech. That was pretty darn slick. When I saw just the first slide, I thought, okay, basically, so that I can grab. I wish that the person on the left were a little bit closer to the right, and I can grab it. It'll select it and then move it and fill in. No, they are actually simulating an actual move of the camera, so that if you basically want the camera to be lower, it will change the perspective of the entire scene in a simulated way that at least in the 300 pixels wide of a frame grab from this video at the keynote looked very, very convincing. But that's pretty darn special, because that is the number of times you're on your phone, like that would have been a good picture had I thought to basically make sure that there's more of the sky behind the subject. And now instead of just simply saying, oh, well, it is what it is and it's 100% authentic, you can say, I can fake being a better photographer by making better decisions after I click the shutter. That's pretty great. I'm surprised, though, they didn't mention that in the document that they posted in the newsroom. It is labeled with Synth ID. All the different edits that are now capable inside the Apple Photos app is basically tagged with this industry Google-led ID tag to say this is AI generated. That was something they should have probably mentioned during the actual keynote itself, because I'm like, I know Apple is not going to be irresponsible enough to suggest that, given that one of the first features they showed off was that, hey, we can even generate images based on people that are already in your photo album. And I'm like, okay, that could be very creepy and very scary. Tell me that you're adding Apple style protections against this being abused. But yeah, they are tagging with Synth ID. But that's the one place where they failed to talk about privacy, failed to talk about security, because it was those two are always intrinsically relevant in any conversation about AI, and they repeatedly made sure they made that part of the conversation in every other feature that they were discussing throughout a 100-minute keynote.
So Mike, have you've played with the photo editing?
Yeah, I'm going to get the original as well.
Yeah, I want to see. So Micah is running the developer preview. Are you running the developer preview, Christina?
Yes, that is correct. Oh, you asked Christina. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I am not. I don't know if I will. The problem is that I have multiple devices, and I have a device I probably could put it on. But until the Siri stuff comes, I don't know. For work, I would never be able to put it on my work device. It just wouldn't. And I'm going to be honest. Like if I had Micah's job, or this was
Micah has to. I
would. Yeah. Right. But I don't remember what year it was. Because I used to always do it. And even after it was no longer my job, now that it's no longer my job, in August, I'll look at it. But
I'm the same way.
I've just been burned too many times. Yeah, I've just been burned too many times, honestly.
Yeah. I'll do maybe I'll do the public in July. It sounds like you're not even going to do the first public release. This is the one I really want to do, though. I mean, I really want to play with this. So, Micah, you did this. Did you do this on iOS today, this photo edit?
Yes, that is correct. And I'm about to share
so people could see this if they wanted to in real time. How long did it take to do
Few
hard was it?
seconds, maybe. Yeah. So it essentially just pops up.
And this is on-device Gaussian splattering.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there we go. There's the paste. So here's the original.
Okay, so this is the original photo, and it's a nice photo. But you said the person who took it was short.
Yeah, it was pretty short. So they're looking kind of up at us. And
Wait a minute, us? I thought that was Johnny Depp. And
that's me on the left. I'm dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. And
Okay.
then the person on the right is dressed as one of my favorite characters of all
Jack.
time. Sam is his name on the right.
Sam?
And so
Okay.
I
Here's the
had to get a
improved
photo with
version.
Sam.
Oh, it's subtle, but it's much nicer.
Yeah, it's just a little bit more directly across from us as opposed to coming from below.
And it is not apparently edited in any way. I mean, it
yeah,
does
you
not
can't
look
really
weird at
tell.
all.
The reframe is very subtle, and it also depends on the photograph in terms of how it was captured, what the depth information is that's available. And so,
Do you have to use it in portrait mode?
It appears that I can run it on photos that aren't in portrait mode, but not as well.
Right.
There's a lot more generation that needs to take place when you do that. So
the depth.
yeah, I took a photo that I had just saved online somewhere, which of course then didn't have that depth data built in, made some adjustments to it, and you could see artifacts and things that you wouldn't see, that you do not see in this.
So Anthony Nielsen, our AI guru, is asking, you think the first part is local, doing the Gaussian splat, and then the outfill is maybe private compute, or no? I don't know. How do we know? Is there any indication that they've gone out to the outside
airplane
I was
mode?
going to say
Airplane mode.
airplane. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna take a photo and I will airplane mode, and then we'll try to make an edit to it. Okay, so here we are in airplane mode.
This is the
and
kind
now
of
I will.
investigative reporting
I was going to say, this is great.
we really need.
I should have eCam open because then you could follow along with me.
I can't imagine how much time I'm going to waste when I have this feature going through like 4, 5, 6 years of previous photos and making little adjustments to them. I'm going to lose 3 weeks of productivity for sure.
I actually really like the 3D effect that it does on the home screen, the lock screen. I think that's really cool. I turned
that was an interesting use while we're waiting. That was an interesting demonstration of, hey, generative AI usually gets like a bad rap, but it's like, hey, when you add a wallpaper, we will actually suggest wallpapers we can generate for you based on not only the people and places in your photo roll, but your activities.
Right.
And I have to say that I wouldn't not generate some of these stuffs on my own, but if I saw this in a gallery of like 8, I would like maybe not get the boring like denim print thing that I was looking for and say, oh, actually, maybe that cute dog that I saw on my walk would be nice flying an airplane over a beach. Thank you very much, Siri.
Interesting. So
Justine did this experiment with, she took ooh, look at that. You do get some interesting depth.
Looks like a lenticular image.
Yeah.
So these two are the same photo. The one on sorry.
Okay, I will go to Discord now and show. So this is
This one that's a little bit more drab. The one on the left is actually the newer photo that I readjusted. The one on the right.
So
is
you were
the
able to do
original.
both, all of it locally.
All of it, and that was local. Yep, I have airplane mode turned on.
That is interesting, and that's a completely different angle. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Look at that.
Rather, and so what I think we're seeing there, you can see that when I readjusted it, it took one of the people out of the photo.
Mm-hmm.
It sure did.
Yeah,
Whoa.
it sure did.
That was
So it's
another thing they
very
mentioned
subject.
during the keynote. Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I liked about this
person
feature.
here on your left disappears.
she's
Yeah, it just
gone.
disappears. But it's good, I feel, that they focus. It seems that it tries to pick out what the subject is and leave that alone as much as possible, which I liked because
Let me
I
ask
thought,
a question.
"Got my
So
kids."
behind this is the original. Behind this woman in the white skirt, it thinks there's this aluminum pole. Was that actually there or
you know
no?
what's weird is that
It
they
made that up.
The only difference is that in real life, that aluminum pole was closed off at the end, as opposed to being open.
But it
like
really
that.
was there.
But it really was there.
So
It
that
genuinely
means
was
it's looking at other images in the
I was going to
same.
say that's something to definitely test out. That if it knows that something was taken in a burst, or there's like 4 pictures that were taken within like a 30-second span.
Ah, that's true because it was a live photo.
Oh, it's a live photo. There you go. So you have multiple images. So
Also, this is interesting. If you zoom in on that second image, or not image, second image, the first image, Michael, the one that was dead. Look, you can kind of see in the background, like there's a woman, like you can see the AI stuff. If you look on the, I guess the table that's on the tent. there's
And then we go back here.
if
The
you,
outfill is
exactly.
making this all up.
That's what I was going to say.
Really.
I was going to say no, but look to the right of that.
Where that woman is?
Yeah, exactly.
There's like a ghost woman there.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Looks like the Mona Lisa a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that's funny that they kind of took
So
that from
because
the
this
first
was a
one.
live photo, it had multiple frames to choose from. So that helps it a lot, I think.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And now I have a new question to ask somebody.
Yeah. Wow. Lots of information here. This is what I'm most excited about now that it's out in people's hands is, what are the capabilities? How can it work? You're watching MacBreak Weekly, the post WWDC dissection with Christina Warren, Andy Anako, and Micah Sargent filling in for Jason Snell, who's still in Cupertino, although he has, of course, filed numerous articles already at sixcolors.com. So if you want Jason's point of view, you can get it there. On we go. Let's see. What else? Golden Gate. macOS 27. They had the usual bad dad jokes about the crack design team and their VW microbus going up to the Golden Gate. Wasn't Big Bear. We thought the rumor was it was going to be Big Bear, but it was Golden Gate. I think that's a good name.
Yeah, good name.
Happy about that.
Not a lot of not a lot of
say.
changes in macOS.
Yeah. Mostly it's glass, right? Is the big changes. And of course, all of these features, this is the other thing that's very interesting. Apple's putting all of these features in all of its platforms, right? I mean, they didn't mention a lot about tvOS or watchOS. There's a few new features, but I presume that all these features will appear. However, this would be a good time for the visionOS segment.
What do you see? What do you know? It's time to talk to Vision Pro.
One of our listeners is playing with the developer beta on his Vision Pro Nightscape. And here's what it looks like when Siri is hovering in your vision on the left. And then when you look at it, it wakes up.
Pretty cool.
Comes a glowing orb.
I can think of so many movies in the 90s where that was like the evil presence that is coming in and takes over the brain of the innocent child while they sleep and turns them into a murderer. I'm sure.
I think it really, Apple definitely showed that they are not giving up on visionOS or Vision Pro, right?
It's nice. Yeah, it's nice. They did. Well, part of the story they were telling is that Siri is not just for one platform, it's for everything, including Watch. But I thought it was really cool that one of the features they were showing off about Siri AI was not necessarily circle to search, but basically if there's something on your screen, you can have Siri basically explain this thing to you. And on Vision Pro, it works with if all you do is look at that thing and then ask Siri about the thing you're looking at without having to specify or highlight it. That's a pretty good show off of what you could do with this kind of tech, particularly if it becomes more compact.
Yeah, they even mentioned Vision Pro in the keynote. There's a new environment. You can actually make your own environment, right?
From panoramas, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And there's a new Thórsmörk environment, which is Northern Lights.
I bought a Thórsmörk when I got my first apartment. It lasted a lot longer.
You can get them at IKEA now,
shelf should,
right?
Yeah.
I believe, yeah. The Thórsmörk environment. They also, let's see, what else? They also announced, I think that's the big one, is the Siri, right? The Siri.
Yeah, the little Siri orb.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
a lot of what is new ends up getting it's tiny little things that have changed as part of the overall improvements, and there are probably a group of people out there that each time one gets read off, that little group of people goes, "Yay, you did my thing that I wanted," which is nice. It's a lot of checking boxes that needed to be checked, but we're kind of still discovering a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's your Vision Pro segment.
It's
Now you see, now you know, we're done talking the Vision
You
Pro.
can't say I didn't do it. That's all I'm saying.
We get to keep our tax credit for another quarter.
Yes, Vision Pro tax credit.
Look, Vision Pro at least got a mention, right? Unlike, the poor HomePod, right? Which
Yes.
I really was surprised because
I was too.
there's still the rumor they're going to announce the new HomePod this year or in
I mean, and maybe they do that in the fall. Maybe they have new Apple TVs and something else. But it did seem to be like an interesting omission. It was either, and I don't know which way to read this, it's either we are finally going to accept defeat and we are no longer pursuing this as strongly as we were, or we're hoping to have a better story in the fall around our various home things. And
this is such a natural, though, to say Siri on the HomePod.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? It's that story they needed to tell today had to do with actually being able to see what's going on and work with a visual interface. They feel as though like they're going to keep making those speakers one way or another. The speakers they're making today will run this. I'm guessing hopefully the Siri tomorrow. When they do have this to show off, they're not going to be able to show it off unless they have a really, really good smart assistant. If they're trying to get people to spend $300, $400 for a new speaker, it's not going to be with a current Siri. They can say like in the fall, well, we have a brand new one and it's optimized for Siri AI. And now here's the stuff you can do with it, especially with the home that you couldn't do before. Yeah. Or like particularly asking questions like, hey, there of the 4 cameras inside my house, what room was my cat in before he decided to throw up on my bedspread? Yeah. These are things that they didn't use that as an actual demo, but that was one of the things they're trying to remind us that HomeKit that home control is actually still a thing they're concerned about. And these speakers are basically going to show that off once they have a Siri that can actually take advantage of it.
I thought it was very amusing, the cat fight that emerged between Mark Gurman and John Gruber. Today on Daring Fireball, John Gruber said, hey, well, Apple didn't say anything about using multiple models in Siri, and it just shows you what people with information about the subject don't know everything. A clear shot at Mark Gurman. To which Mark Gurman tweeted, they did, see? And he showed in the code that, in fact, maybe you are going to be able to use new models or different models in Siri. I don't know exactly who wins this argument. It's just unseemly, children. Just knock it off. Mommy and Daddy are fighting.
It's kind of like when Leno and Letterman were fighting with each other. It's like, but they're both making $30 million a year. They don't really have to do this.
It feels genuine, though. It feels genuine. Like there is definitely like Gruber was pissed off. He's complained about Gurman before.
I'm not even going to guess. I don't read Gruber only because I don't want him to say something that I was going to write about and then think, well, I don't have to write about. I shouldn't write about it now because Gruber's already done it and done it well, so I don't have to do that. Yeah. So it's fine. They're both great.
We will get a report from the talk show, which he's doing.
Gentlemen, you're both pretty. You're both pretty.
But I only have one rose, and this is the penultimate episode, so one of you has to go to the island, unfortunately.
Gruber's headline, from the annals of people having knowledge of the matter. And he puts a question mark next to Mark Gurman's reporting.
Yeah.
Come on.
That was perhaps
that is a little pointed, let's say.
And Gurman, of course, posted on X a response where he said, well, it is in the code, so maybe Apple didn't mention it. Anyway. Okay. It is actually of some interest. I like the idea of being able to use other models.
Yeah.
So that is
I do too. I mean, that will be the interesting thing, I think, to see what capabilities they're allowed to have access to and how much work they will have to do, in order to do that. Because, obviously I think Apple is going to, many Apple users are going to be very happy to just be within the Apple ecosystem, but there are people who have workflows and who pay a lot of money for other subscriptions to other services and want to use that. The bigger question that I have, I mean, this is sort of related, is, okay, it's great that I can do all this stuff in Apple Mail, or I can do this in Apple Calendar, and that I can do it in other things, but how is it going to work in other applications? Because, like many people, I do use Apple Mail, but it's not my preference. Most of my email is hosted in Gmail. There are other places, but other than iCloud, like I go to Apple Mail out of kind of default. I use Fantastical as my mail client or Reclaim, for some work things. At work, I obviously use Outlook. A lot of people use Google Docs. They're not going to be using Pages and things like that. And you might use a different notes app. So that I think is going to be where the opportunities, but also I think where the kind of the swim lanes get a little bit confused, which is, okay, all these things they showed off are going to work great or hopefully great if you are completely in the Apple ecosystem, but most people aren't. And that I think is going to be the sign, because one of the interesting things about some of the other AI companies has been that they've made deals with these other providers so that you can have a really good experience, manipulating and using Google Docs, even if you're using Cloud or ChatGPT, right? Like you don't have to just use Gemini. So that I think will be the interesting thing is that will the Apple stuff work in those applications too? Will that be a thing that developers have to update? Will that be a thing that Apple will seek out? Or are we going to continue to kind of be bifurcated, and Apple expects us all to live in this fantasy world where the only thing that anybody touches is Safari and iMessage and the music app and mail and all of that?
Yeah. Actually, one of the things Apple did say is regarding pricing is that some of the basic features will be free, but there will be limits which you can extend if you have an Apple services subscription. They showed
iCloud Plus.
Yes, I saw
iCloud Plus, but I imagine Apple One would also apply to that. And then the question is, well, how much more can you extend it? And then if you do have, as I do, a Gemini Max account or whatever it's called, can that apply to it? Or can I use my Claude Max or my GPT Plus account? I mean, this is all, these are all questions people who use AI will have. I use Fastmail, so
right.
I hope this will all work with Fastmail. My agentic solutions certainly do. I have MCP servers.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like the agentic solutions all do, right? Like you said, they've been interoperable, and companies have either come out with MCP servers or they've done other things, and that I think will be the real kind of like sign for me, which is Apple actually going to be willing to pass off some of this stuff? Because and I'm fine if for Apple to say, look, we can't guarantee privacy and all of that if this is running on a server that's controlled by someone else. Like that is completely fine. But I don't want, for instance, Max posted on Twitter kind of a example of how he was able to use Siri to add all domains from all the emails from a certain domain to his junk folder, and it did it. That's great. Will I have to do that in Apple Mail, or would that be something that I can instruct Siri to do in Gmail or in Fastmail or something else, right?
The other question
it's a bummer.
that comes up for me is safety. So I can't ask Chinese models about Tiananmen Square. I'm wondering if I'll be able to ask Apple models like to read this fine print from the Apple keynote. Like what things will by the way, Claude was able to Fable totally read it. It said, this is one of Apple's classic wall of feature slides. And here's a few of the things. You want me to transcribe it? And I said, yes. And so in fact, it is transcribing that fine print. But Apple is going to be very safety aware. This is something that frustrates a lot of people with other models is, it thinks this is nudity or something. This is not, I wonder when we're going to start seeing some of those gates.
And it can be very capricious too, where it's something that as they keep updating the models, like behind the scenes, like something that you use just part of your workflow, suddenly, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to do that. I've got a guardrail against that. Can I help you generate a birthday card instead? So no, I really wanted you to organize my mailbox, but okay. This is why it's so interesting that these are such early days. All the stuff that gets demoed, no matter who's demoing, no matter what company it is, it's all predicated on when you make a request, it actually works. Okay, it doesn't. 80% of the time, almost won't do. The magical transition for me with certain AIs, particularly Gemini, was when I found myself thinking, I don't know if it can do this, but I'm going to give it a try anyway to see what happens, because I tend to have really good luck. Right now, the biggest frustration is like Christine was saying. The Gemini has the daily brief that they announced a couple of weeks ago, and it works great. But the thing is, like, it only works like with my Gmail account that's associated with this particular Gemini account. It doesn't even work with like the multiple Gmail inboxes I have for different parts of my business. It would be great if I could have it work with my Outlook, but it absolutely can't. And and at this stage of the technology, we might argue that it's good that it can't, because who knows what it would be able to mess up, and who knows if we can just trust an agent to do that way. But as soon as that's what makes this one feature as good as it is, and I'm talking about just this morning, it's in the daily brief said, oh, by the way, your friends are organizing this event, and they're calling you up because maybe Andy's Gmail address will work better for contact with him. Oh, I did not even know that. That's great. Thank you very much for notifying about this. I will action on this immediately. But the thing is, if it were attached to Outlook, I would not have waited a week for this to actually happen. So it's not as useful a thing as it could possibly be.
263 features in that tiny fine print feature wall, Andy. It was completely transcribed by Fable, and it says, by the way, handy for show notes or MacBreak Weekly Rundown. You want a version group by platform, iOS, iPadOS, macOS.
Heck yes.
Do you filter
yes,
just to the
please.
audio podcast relevant items? And then it says, you want to open it in BB Edit or in Google Drive? It's pretty, Fable's pretty
great.
helpful. This is the kind of thing people who use AI regularly expect.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
And so this is coming to a phone near you is pretty exciting if it does. If it does,
If it does, yeah.
its fullness. Yeah.
It would be great if, for instance, if you could have taken that image and then in the Notes app asked the same kind of query, right?
Yeah.
Pulled up the Siri
Yeah.
thing and said, hey,
Right. Show me that whole thing. And I don't know
give
why
me this in
that
text.
it can't. I imagine it could. I don't know.
I'm sure. Maybe it can. I don't know. I think that it'll come down to the modalities and how we're used to using things.
Right.
That I think is the interesting opportunity, but also challenge that Apple has right now. As I kind of mentioned before, is that again, we've had years to use these tools, and for most people, the Apple tools have not been part of the conversation because they've been bad. And so it'll be interesting to see. Okay, well, how do we get used to invoking those tools? And within the Apple ecosystem, without opening up another app to do it.
Yeah.
Apple did not hesitate to say not available in the EU and China.
I love that. I love that.
During the video saying that.
And then they put out a press release that was even more specific. It's due to the Digital Markets
Do the
Act.
DMA. I loved that.
And Jaws gave a special briefing to I think some members of the press, explaining further that how frustrated they were. Google's in the same sort of boat with these, because basically this is one area in which I can't agree with the EU wanting to expand interoperability, because they're basically asking for something that will require Apple Intelligence to not be secure, to basically give access to these. Give access to the transports to all of this information to any other AI that wants to use it. In principle, it's a good idea, but it can't work. Google.
This is the international version of the Gruber-Gurman split, because the EU responded. EU regulators on Tuesday slammed Apple for blaming EU tech rules for its decision, saying that the EU had rejected the company's request for an 18-month exemption from its obligations.
That was cheeky.
Yeah.
That was ambitious.
So the decision not to roll out Siri AI in the EU is Apple and Apple's only, says the EU. Apple was simply unable to develop interoperable. This is all about interop, right? Apple does not want to be interoperable. Apple was simply unable to develop interoperability solutions that meet essential EU privacy and security standards. Instead of trying to find a suitable compliance solution, Apple simply made a request to the European Commission to be exempted from their obligations for 18 months. That is not an option, says the EU. No, you can't do it, you silly company. So
the good news is that most of their processes are based on, we'll sit down and we'll talk about this and we'll try to work this out, as opposed to, nope, you created this rule, you're going to comply with this rule, goodbye. If you don't like it, again, go get into the bakery business. Don't try to make a phone operating system. I hope that at some point they're going to, with both pressure from Google and Apple, hopefully they will amend their opinions and their.
It's pretty clear
they can't comply with this.
They
can't.
The way they did it at the keynote, to me, looked like they're hoping European Apple users will complain to their members of Congress and say,
they're not being quiet.
We want this.
Again,
what are you doing?
A full court press. They're not being coy about this. They're not saying in a statement to a reporter who specifically asked about this question. It's like, no, we are making this we're a full-throated like part of this keynote event in which they did not talk about a whole bunch of stuff they could have talked about, but they found that they had a minute to insert this thing of here's the reason why you're not getting this, because we absolutely can't. Here is why, and we're going to put a special thing on the newsroom. We're going to make one of our principal parts of the management team available to talk about this to anybody who wants to listen to it. This is not going to end quietly.
They did say China as well, but I think that
that's a different thing. Yeah,
it's pretty clear that that's an issue of having to have Chinese models,
right?
And they don't.
Yeah, and it's probably a data sovereignty thing too. I would imagine,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like the
servers in China and all.
Right,
that.
which especially since it's not just their servers, right? They're using another company's servers too. That's even more complicated. But yeah, no, I mean, with Andy, I mean, they were saying it with their full throat, which. It's unfortunate for the EU, market, but I also understand it, and I am totally on Apple's side in this case. Like, if given the two opportunities, like I feel like I understand the point of what the DMA is trying to accomplish. I don't know if that's something that I think is for anyone's.
Apple may also be hoping for intervention from the U.S. government because the U.S. government has complained to the EU. These companies are for us to regulate, not you. In fact, the latest one is you shouldn't have any bans on social media for kids under 16, even though many states in the United States do. Mm-hmm. They're telling the EU and other countries, no, you can't do that, which is.
Yeah, exactly. They actually had a new developer post about here's how to comply with Texas's new age verification law, and now because that goes into effect, that went into effect on the 4th, I think. Right. So I mean, they know how to do this. They know how the infrastructure. They don't like it, but that's the easiest path forward for them. At this point, for Siri AI, arguing and basically saying and digging your heels is absolutely the easiest path forward, because what do they lose for the next 6 months? Nothing, because Siri AI is not going to be shipping until any time in the fall, and then that gives them a lot of time to either escalate, and then basically draw the lines and figure out how to solve this problem. So I'm glad that they're fighting the fight as ardently as they are, instead of doing the Google thing, which is say, yeah, we're just going to keep doing what we do and hope things work out.
Well, but even in the Google thing, I mean, there are features that are not available in the EU for the exact same reasons, right? So, I mean, there are a lot of the AI models, like, this actually becomes a problem if you are, say, an AI scientist who works at a frontier lab who is based in a country where there are laws that prevent you from accessing some of the models that you work on. So ask me how I know about that. But but they're, so this isn't just a unique to Apple problem, but I feel like they are certainly, because there's such a big share of consumer voice, and they do, I mean, the EU in their press release were like, 27% of total sales are from, the EU. And I was like, yeah. And I don't know how much that matters, right? Like, I don't think Apple's going to upend their entire way of operating just to try to appease, that customer base. I think if the opportunity is make this available or not, that's what it will be.
No sign of John Turnus, although it was very nice that they gave Tim Cook the opportunity to kind of, at the end, have a little coda and say goodbye. Tim, before the event, posted a pretty funny video on X. Of course, Tim's signature greeting is "Good morning," and he decided, I guess, to get a bunch of celebrities to suggest how he should say that "Good morning."
Hey, Tim, I think you ought to tap into your countryside and say something like, "Good morning, y'all."
That's my favorite Siri voice.
War Eagle.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, flashbacks from the Google Pixel event last year.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jane Krasinski.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tim shakes his
Morning
head.
good.
Speaking of Matthew Reese.
Good morning.
Timmy, why don't you just tell me?
Are these all Apple stars? There's a
Whoopi.
Whoopi.
Good morning.
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford. There you go. That was the coolest.
Good morning.
Pluribus. Good morning. I see one. That was cute.
Tim Cook, big fan. I'm gonna tell you what. Life is your oyster, man. You got to go pick it. You can do it all.
Thanks for the ideas. I think I'll say it the way I always say it. Good morning.
I love that. I think that's a really sweet little piece.
The last one was nice. Tim really needed that shot in the arm.
It's okay, man. You can do it, man. I believe
he's
in
going
you.
to set his goals a little bit higher from now on than being the CEO of one of the most successful $4.5 trillion companies in the world.
All right. Well, I think it was I have to say, I think it was a good a keynote. I think Apple did what it needed to do. I think the real issue, it's all going to come down to delivering. And we won't know anything about that till maybe this fall. But if they can deliver on what they showed, Apple will, I think, in many ways become the most used AI of all. Yeah.
Pre-installed on a phone that sells to 60 to 80% of people in the United States as it is.
In the words of Oprah, a billion phones in people's pockets, y'all.
Well, most of those billion phones won't work with it.
Exactly. Or the ones bought last year. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's
for all the phones bought last year.
As we said,
that's because it's an we should say it, in all fairness, that's because it's an on-device model, and you have to have a lot of horsepower and a lot of RAM.
But that also means that that quarter for the new iPhone is going to be something spectacular. Because it means that a lot of the people who are normally on like a 5-year upgrade cycle, maybe they'll say after 3 years it's time for me to update. Last night I was inventorying like all of my Apple stuff, most of which was kind of like still working fine, but kind of end of life, and thinking that, okay, you know what, my M1 MacBook Pro is still working great, but this might be the year that, despite that, I will simply buy an M5 because this would be a good year to buy it. I've gotten good service out of it. I could wait another year or two, but why wait to get Apple Intelligence? And deciding like maybe I don't want to upgrade my iPad because I'm going to have to buy the $1,200 one to get one that uses this. So maybe I will just keep that going. All these decisions are going to be made by a lot of people, and there's going to be a lot. Apple's going to have to say in the quarterly call like this quarter was a tough compare with last year, given that we had significant tailwinds in the upgrade cycle with people replacing 3 and 4-year-old phones to get access to Siri AI.
Your picks of the week coming up next. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy Anako. Jason's got the week off, but Micah Sargent is here. It's really nice to have you, Micah. Good to see you. And I should tell everybody, watch iOS Today, which will be out later today, right?
Actually, it'll on Thursday.
Okay.
On Thursday. Yeah.
So watch it in a couple of days, because that will have a full rundown of all the features in the iPad and iOS devices. And, of course, Christina Warren, GitHub Developer Relations. Time for your picks of the week. I have a pick that has nothing to do with Apple, but I'm going to do it anyway. I found a site I really like called Absurdly Optimized. And basically his whole thing is absurdly optimizing stuff. In this case, the absurdly optimized pancake.
Already.
Yes, I saw this site. I loved this so much. I loved everything about this. Yeah,
a systematic investigation of acid-base neutralization, CO2 production kinetics, gluten inhibition, and the Maillard reaction as applied to a 125-gram flour batter with an interactive stoichiometric calculator that adapts to whatever is in your refrigerator. Now, that looks like a pretty damn fine pancake, I gotta say.
Here's the calculator. Neurochemistry, and it's working great for me.
You can slide it everywhere from mild to very tangy. You can change the fluffiness from French crepe through Swedish pancake to ricotta souffle, and you can scale the servings. So, and choose the ingredients that you want to put in. So, a very nice site. I am going to go make pancakes right after the show.
Heck yeah.
This guy is wild. He also talks about the perfect bagel and many other things. Absurdly Optimized, which is at, actually, is it absurdlyoptimized.com? I don't know what that
is. It looks like it. Absurdlyoptimized.
Absurdlyoptimized.com. Yes, that's it. And he talks about coffee, Kyoto glazed salmon, towel absorbency, but I think the best, the absurdly optimized pancake. Andy Anako, your pick of the week.
I had a little bit of emotional whiplash yesterday. I took lots of pictures at the Pride Parade at my nearby town on Sunday, copied like 300 pictures off of my SD card to external SSD. Then after the copy was complete, I deleted those files off of the SD, and then discovered that no, they didn't actually copy at all.
I never erased my SD cards.
I know that was stupid. And so basically, it made me look and find a really good data recovery tool called PhotoRec. Go to cgsecurity.org to get it. It's actually a command line thing. You can install it with Brew. I chose it because there were way too many like really bad apps on the App Store that essentially take an open source free open source software project, put like a really stupid like UI wrapper around it, and then try to get $5 or $10 for it, and then does God knows what else. This is a free open source tool that has a really nice text-based graphical user interface. So basically you have menus you can just navigate with the arrow keys, and it just does a very, very linear job of which volume that's attached do you want to check. Great. What of these three formats is it in? This, great. Okay, where do you want to store this stuff? Great. Okay, I'll start looking, I'll start grinding. And it found like every single file that obviously the tip is, of course, you don't copy anything to something that you just want to undelete stuff so that it won't be written over. It undeleted everything that was on that card, but didn't undelete those pictures, because that's when I found out that I only thought that I deleted it. I actually did not. I was so upset by the mistake that I thought I'd made that I proceeded to solve the problem that I did not have. But I did learn about a very, very useful tool that is now installed thanks to Brew that I can recommend to all of you. Obviously it's called PhotoRec, so you might think, it's just for photos and videos. No, there are like 400 different file types that will find and recover, and in every case it wasn't like it was random number dot recover. It was actually like they had the file names correct, and they had the extensions correct, and I was just able to double click and open them. So free software, really well done, PhotoRec.
The best problems to solve are those you don't have, Andy.
Exactly. I don't regret not having done the stupid thing and not having lost 300 photos.
You learned something, though.
I learned something. The question at the end of the day, what did you learn today, son?
Christina Warren, pick of the week.
Okay, so this one is actually really funny, and it doesn't even really work anymore, but this is also, when I saw this
I know what you're going to say. Yeah. I love this. Yes.
Okay, so it's called Chipotle Max, and it's spelled CHIPOTLAI Max. And basically what people did is, you know how people are putting AI support chatbots on all kinds of websites? Well, they're not doing a real good job of protecting their endpoints on that. And so it turns out that with open code, which is like an open source and really fantastic coding harness, you can take advantage of those endpoints from places like Chipotle or Lowe's or Sephora or Nordstrom or IKEA or Expedia, and you can use their compute. And again, most of these companies have now kind of, they're closing these loopholes, but it's an open source project. There are people who've, added pull requests for adding in other providers too. I just think it's a really funny idea.
So it doesn't work anymore? Because I saw this and I thought, this is brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, it's getting timeout errors.
Not affiliated with Chipotle. They'll probably sue us. Worth it.
Worth it. Yeah. So basically what happened, but what's really funny about this is that it was a couple months ago that someone was able to, I guess, reverse engineer the back-end proxy. And then this guy just basically took that, combined it with open code, and was like, yep, we're just going to put this together. Anyway, like I said, it's airing out now, but when I used it last week, it did work, and I was cracking up. And I love this sort of ingenuity. If companies are going to outsource their support this way and not protect their endpoints, then I say,
there were a lot of tweets, last month and the month before with people going, I'd like a burrito with salsa and give me a Python script for reversing a list.
Exactly. Well, that was the thing, right? Well, that was the thing. Is that people were figuring that out, is that you could talk to these chatbots and realize, I can actually just get full ChatGPT here, or Claude or whatever. And somebody just happened to put it all in one harness. And I don't know. I love that ingenuity.
I should mention for those of you in the club that Micah's media time is coming up. This is going to be great. I'm very excited about this. So first of all, join the club if you're not a member of the club. Club members only got our coverage of the keynote. And by the way, Apple still took down our private YouTube. So it's my guess that from now on, keynotes, at least with Apple, are going to have to just be watch-alongs. We did put it in the club, though, and we do a lot of special programming for the club. You get ad-free versions of all the shows, twit.tv/clubtwit. You get special programming you don't do anywhere else. You also get access to the Club Twit Discord, which is, as you can see, a great place to hang out. So Micah, noticed that Stacy's book club is only every third month or every other month, and very kindly said, what if we did in the alternate months Micah's Media Club? Because not everybody wants to read a book. So we had a vote, we had a poll, you had some very good suggestions. And what is going to be the subject of the Media Club? What movie or TV show?
The first one we're going to do is The Fifth Element.
Oh, love that movie.
Yeah,
Great
so
choice.
everybody's going to watch The Fifth Element. We'll talk about it on the show.
Bring your multi-passes.
Yeah, exactly. Bring your multi-pass. What got second place was top animated episodes. And so I will, as I mentioned, we're going to basically just add a new one to the list whenever people vote. And so I'm hoping that that'll end up being the next one.
Including Marge and the Monorail, the classic
Marge and the Monorail, Jurassic Bark from Futurama, and a really good episode of Rick and Morty called Total Recall.
This month, June 19th, 2 p.m. Pacific, I'm coming because I love this movie, The Fifth Element Media Club with Micah. And then we also have a book for Stacy's Book Club, which you'll find if you look on the Club Twit.
Slow Gods
events.
by Claire North.
Yeah, Slow Gods. I've already downloaded the audio book of that. It sounds really good. Sounds really good. Chris Marquardt's Photo Time is going to precede Micah's Media Club, so we're going to have a double header on the 19th. Lots of good stuff. If you're not in the club, it is a great way to support what we do here. Independent podcasting with no obligation to any company. We represent you, the users, and I think that's really important, especially in this media climate. But we do need your support to do it. twit.tv/clubtwit. So Micah, you get to do a pick of the week.
Yeah, my pick of the week. If you are a word nerd or a public speaking nerd or a theater kid or one of the above, you may like this poem written in 1922 called The Chaos, meant to display the chaos that is the English language, given the fact that it's essentially three languages stacked on top of each other.
We just got an example. A number of people in the chat said, is photorec WRECK?
There you go.
Or RECK. Well, it is REC, but so this is what? Are these all homonyms? What are these?
Yes, many of them are homonyms. Some of it is just a matter of, reading two words very near one another.
Would you give us a dramatic reading of at least a couple of verses here?
Dearest creature in creation, studying English pronunciation, I will teach you in my verse, sounds like corpse, core, horse, and worse. I will keep you, Susie, busy, make your head with heat grow dizzy. Tear in eye, your dress you'll tear, queer fair seer, hear my prayer.
Well, see, these are the opposites of homonyms.
Yes.
They sound same.
They are spelled the same, but are pronounced completely differently. There's
Horse
one
and worse. Yeah.
I did not know that. This is one of my favorite lines. Say expecting fraud and trickery, daughter laughter, and terpsichore. It looks like it should be terpsichore, but it's terpsichore.
Terpsichore, yes.
Branch, ranch, measles, topsails, aisles.
Oh,
missiles, similes, reviles.
This would be a good test, announcer test.
Yes.
See if you can do this.
God, I
without
love it so
stumbling.
much. I love it.
Wow. This is great. I've never heard of this.
I hadn't either. I heard about it the first time the other day, and someone had posted a sort of truncated version of it with the easier ones, and I ended up looking it up and seeing, oh, it's got even more.
This is hard.
I was just eating it up.
One anemone Balmoral, kitchen lichen laundry laurel, Balmoral, Gertrude German wind and wind, bow kind kindred cue mankind.
It's so good.
It's delightful. The Chaos by Gerard Nolst Trinité. 800 of the worst irregularities in English spelling and pronunciation.
For some, a nightmare. For others, absolute pleasure.
Wow. There are very famous announcer tests, which are very hard to do, and they used to in the old days of radio. You'd walk in saying, I want to be a booth announcer. And they'd say, well, read this, kid.
Read this. And there's some where you're meant to read it in one breath. Others that are based on pronunciation. Some that are based on confidence. I think they're fantastic.
Yeah,
so much
really
fun.
cool. The Chaos. Mr. Micah Sargent, we don't get enough of you. I'm so glad that you stopped by today.
Yay.
It was great
Good to
doing
be
the keynote with you yesterday. Catch iOS today on Thursday and get the complete update on what Apple announced for iOS and iPadOS. And of course, we didn't talk about shortcuts, but the vibe coding shortcuts, I can't imagine Rosemary Orchard is being more excited about anything than that. So.
Absolutely. More people getting more access to something that she very much cares about is awesome. The democratization of shortcuts.
She's the absolute king of shortcuts. It's very much worth watching that show on Thursday. Thank you, Andy Anako. The website is up. And are you getting traffic? Are people visiting?
Getting lots of traffic. I'm very, very grateful. I'm a little bit surprised. I had a lot of time over the past year to think about what numbers am I going to have to reach before I think that, okay, you know what, this was not a total waste of time. I'm not just doing this for my own entertainment. And those were kind of blown past within 38 minutes. So I wish I could send that message back to the Andy from August of last year who said, stick with it. I know it's a lot of work, but there are people who are interested in this and they will actually read this out. So thank you very much. I posted the third thing this week, this morning. I've got a couple more that are on deck before I do the big post about WWDC. Unfortunately, I have to check to make sure I know what I'm talking about before I do that last one.
You get tech and musicals and opera. And by the way, did you love Pink's opening for the Tony Awards? That was
heck yes.
Wow, that was
love
amazing.
With wire work. Anything that involves wire work, I'm
well, as soon as it opened and there's a woman dressed as Peter Pan hanging upside down, I went, Pink.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
We saw her in Vegas. She flies in from the back. It's like, girl, careful.
Please be careful, please.
She loves doing that wire work. I love Pink. So that was a lot of fun.
They need her on Chicago because when she did that, when she did the number at the end, I was like, okay, she would be perfect stunt casting. I know that she did that because her daughter really wants to make it. I'm like, okay, you can still be a Nepo mom, but actually please do the stunt casting because she'd be fantastic.
Yeah,
right.
CBS started posting the musical numbers from the show. It's that's the reason why the Tonys is probably my one don't want to miss it award show every year, because it is one hell of a great piece of entertainment.
I didn't know any of the shows this year, so I didn't.
Schmigadoon was an Apple.
It was an
Apple TV production, and it won.
Did they win?
They did won best musical, and in fact they thanked Apple for canceling them, which was very funny.
That's funny. Okay, that's actually really funny.
Yeah,
I know Amy Webb's produced Chess was nominated. I didn't think it won, but
it did not. It did not.
She's had a great run with that. It's still on Broadway, doing very well. So, yeah, very nice. I didn't realize they made a Rocky Horror Picture Show into a Broadway show. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's doing well. It's one of the few that's doing well. I mean, Andy can speak to this more. It's kind of a weird year for Broadway, at least for musicals, because two of them closed before the Tonys even happened, and a couple others have already announced that they're closing. So it's just been kind of an off year. But the Tonys itself is one of those kind of really fun can't miss.
Yeah. I'm a Broadway fan, huge Broadway fan, but this year not its best year. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Christina. Christina, I didn't even mention, of course, developer relations at GitHub. Love having you on. We appreciate you filling that empty seat.
Doing my best.
No longer empty. It's her seat.
It's now the Christina Warren honorary chair.
No, it is still Alex's seat, but I'm doing what I can to bring things here, and I've been having a great time. Thank you all for being so welcoming, and this is really fun.
Hard to see if any Alex crept into the keynote. And I don't think any did, although maybe the environments in the Vision Pro.
I was going to say
that might have been an Alex.
Maybe
I thought that
there wasn't. I'm glad that they weren't quite so wacky with the transitions. I guess
that was a relief.
Maybe they lost their drone permit for certain altitudes. They said, okay, we'll just have to walk from one place to another.
Yeah, they toned it down quite a bit. That was fine with me. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday. There isn't always Apple news, but when there is, boy, we have lots to talk about. When there isn't, boy, we have lots to talk about. Every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can watch us do it live if you're in the club. Of course, the club Discord's the place to be, but otherwise, we broadcast it for everybody on YouTube, Twitch, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick after the fact. We edit it up and put it on our website, twit.tv/MBW. There's audio and video there. You can also check it out on YouTube. There's a dedicated MacBreak Weekly channel with the video on YouTube. A great way to share clips with people if you want to help spread the word about one of the second longest running Apple shows in the world. We also make it a podcast so you can download it with your favorite podcast client. Subscribe in Overcast or Pocket Cast or whatever you like, Apple Podcasts. And if you do that, make sure you leave us a nice review. Help tell everybody about MacBreak Weekly. Unfortunately, however, our time has come, and it is time for me to tell you to get back to work because break time is over. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.